Chapter 2023. This question was low, cold, and oppressive. Every word was like a mountain that weighed heavily on Mo Shurqian's heart. What did he want? Of course, it was the thing in Chu Liyue's body. But he couldn't say this out loud. The scene fell into a stalemate and was deathly silent. The air seemed to have solidified. Everyone held their breaths and waited. At this moment, even breathing seemed wrong. It's all a misunderstanding. Finally, Mo Shurqian spoke slowly. Every word seemed to be spat out through gritted teeth. Previously, Shurqian didn't know that Sheng Guanyu had such a relationship with you. I hope Senior can forgive me for offending you. He lowered his head and compromised. The people from Black Demon Cave were shocked at first, then they looked dejected and desperate. Even the sect master said so, that made sense. They had spent so much effort to invite foreign aid, but in the end, they were supporting the other party. Then how could this match go on? There was probably nothing more embarrassing than this misunderstanding. I don't think so. Diwu Zhangze interrupted him and sneered. Just now, this old man heard it clearly. You wanted to kill you, and the others. Although this old man is old, I haven't reached the stage of being blind and deaf. Even if it's really a misunderstanding, can I make a mistake a few years ago and make another mistake now? Mo Shurqian closed his eyes and took a deep breath to suppress the surging emotions in his heart. It's a long story. I can't explain it to you in a short time, I have a lot of time. If you have anything to say, just say it. If I can resolve the misunderstanding between you two, I'll have done a good deed, right? Diwu Zhangze laughed. But in Mo Shurqian's ears, this laugh was undoubtedly the greatest mockery. He gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. There was really no way to clean up this situation now. Explain. There was no explanation at all. He was the one who did those things. How could he explain it clearly? Mo Shurqian never thought that Chu Liyue had such a backer. He lowered his head slightly and didn't say a word. Seeing his reaction, what else could Diwu Zhangze doubt? Mo Shurqian, you... Before she could finish her sentence, Mo Shurqian suddenly moved. He turned his fist into a palm and slammed it toward the blood heaven mirror in front of him. Since the person he invited wasn't a helper, then, there was no need for him to be so respectful. The thick black mist instantly shrouded the blood heaven realm. Diwu Zhangze shouted angrily. Mo Shurqian. How dare you? He wanted to destroy the blood heaven realm. It contained Diwu Zhangze's aura. If the blood heaven realm was destroyed, Diwu Zhangze would also be affected. Moreover, without the blood heaven mirror, he couldn't do anything. Since Senior doesn't intend to help, then don't blame us for being impolite. Before he finished his words, Mo Shurqian had already slapped the center of the blood heaven realm. Sect leader. When Do Min and the others saw this, they were all shocked and cried out in surprise. They all knew that blood heaven realm was closely related to Mo Shurqian. Most of his cultivation relied on this item. If he was injured, he could only recover quickly by relying on the blood heaven realm. Once the blood heaven realm was destroyed, he would also be greatly affected. But now that things had come to this, he had no other choice. Crack. A crisp cracking sound was heard. A crack quickly spread on the blood heaven realm. Puff! Almost at the same time as the blood heaven realm shattered, Mo Shurqian's body shook and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The aura around his body also instantly became dispirited. But he didn't stop attacking. As long as the blood heaven realm was destroyed, the only way for Diwu Zhangze to come would be cut off. If he didn't come, Mo Shurqian and the entire Black Demon Cave might still have a chance to survive. Sensing Mo Shurqian's thoughts, Diwu Zhangze snorted coldly, and blood energy filled the air. A terrifying pressure suddenly surged out from it. Mo Shurqian's heart sank. Before he could react, he was blown away by the violent air wave. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu were standing not far away and were about to be affected. However, just as the power was about to engulf them, a figure suddenly broke out of the Blood Heaven realm. Boom! The Blood Heaven realm completely shattered. However, that figure stood in front of them and easily blocked the violent energy that was sweeping towards them. Everyone turned to look at that figure. It was Diwu Zhangze. But at this time, his figure was a translucent phantom. And this was the aura he had stored in the Blood Heaven realm. Mo Shurqian looked at the scene in front of him in shock and disbelief. How could this be? When the Blood Heaven realm shattered, your aura should also dissipate. He didn't finish his sentence, but everyone present understood what he meant. Diwu Zhangze first turned around and carefully looked at Chu Luiyue. I came out in a hurry just now. Did I hurt you? He asked with concern and nervousness. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, I'm fine. Not to mention that with her current strength, she could perfectly avoid the attack. Even if it was too late, there was still Rong Xiu in him. The two of them stood in front of her and protected her tightly. It would be strange if she was still injured. Diwu Zhangze was relieved after making sure that she wasn't affected. That's good, that's good. On the one hand, he felt sorry for you, On the other hand, if De Bao and Lan Xiao found out that he didn't protect you, well, TSK, Diwu Zhangze didn't know if he could still survive in the Red Moon Desert. He let out a long sigh of relief and looked at Mo Shurqian. Mo Shurqian met those old and cold eyes, and his heart suddenly trembled. You're right. Without the Blood Heaven realm, I can't come over. Diwu Zhangze stroked his beard. But who told you that my aura would be annihilated if the Blood Heaven realm shattered? Mo Shurqian opened his mouth but didn't make a sound. He thought so because this was tacitly agreed by the Black Demon Cave sect masters. Who knew that after the Blood Heaven realm shattered, not only did the aura not dissipate, but it even appeared. Suddenly, Diwu Zhangze patted his head. Oh, I remember now. This should be what Mo Yao said back then. Mo Yao was the first sect master of the Black Demon Cave and the forger of the Blood Heaven realm. He told you that you can summon me with the Blood Heaven realm, and if you destroy it, you can also cut off my way of life, right? Diwu Zhangze looked at him sympathetically. Silly child, I lied to him back then. Why did you all believe it? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2024. Mo Shurqian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Even when he knew that Diwu Zhangze was Chu Luiyue's half-master, he had never been so desperate. Fake, all of this was fake. This was the highest level secret of the Black Demon Cave, which had been passed down for thousands of years. All the previous sect masters had believed in it and kept it strictly. But it turned out that it had been a complete lie from the beginning. Mo Shurqian's blood and qi surged, and his aura showed signs of rebellion. The strong smell of blood between his lips and teeth kept surging, almost suffocating him. His mind buzzed and seemed to be blank. Even everything in front of him seemed to be distorted and became illusory. Diwu Zhangze's voice kept coming into his ears. To me, the Blood Heavenly Realm is nothing more than a place for this remnant aura to reside. Even if it's gone, I can still stay in another place. However, I remember that this Blood Heaven realm seems to be very important to you, right? Especially since you're the sect master. If I'm not wrong, more than half of your force will be consumed when the Blood Heaven realm is broken, right? Diwu Zhangze shook his head with emotion. So miserable, so miserable. Years of hard work and cultivation were ruined just like that. Those who heard it were sad and those who heard it shed tears. Mo Shurqian spat out another mouthful of blood. After the blood heaven realm was broken, the black mist that had been lingering around him gradually dissipated. His face was finally revealed in front of everyone. Chu Luiyue looked over, and surprise flashed across her eyes. Mo Shiqian looked very young, only in his 20s. His appearance was delicate and even a little feminine. His skin was very white, and if one looked carefully, one could even see the faint blue blood vessels under his thin skin. It was as if he had never seen the sun all year round. Anyone who saw him would find it hard to accept that the famous sect master of the Black Demon Cave had such a look. Did he rely on cultivation to maintain this appearance? Chu Luiyue asked in a low voice. It was said that Mo Shiqian had been the sect master for decades. His true age was obviously not the 20-something years old that he appeared to be. Rong Xiao nodded. Diwu Zhangzi chuckled. Girl, there's something you don't know. The cultivation method of the Black Demon Cave is different from that of other sects and clans. They devour the essence and force of other cultivators to improve their own strength. It's extremely insidious. Moreover, the younger and more talented, the richer and purer the power they can extract. Mo Shiqian is now at the peak of the God realm. To reach this step, his hands are stained with the blood of countless cultivators. This was also why he had lied to Mo Yao back then. From the very beginning, he knew that this Black Demon Cave was not a good place. But at that time, he didn't care. Who would have thought that today, they would actually stretch their hands towards you, This Diwu Zhang says. Chu Luiyue was shocked when she heard this, but she instantly understood something. No wonder. The Black Demon sect had to pass as AS cultivators. However, after they gathered these people, they did not spend much effort in nurturing them. Instead, they killed them in batches. It turned out, it was all because of this. Below, Ziji and the rest also turned pale when they heard this. He had originally thought that after participating in this trial, he would be able to enter the Divine Ruins world and achieve meteoric success, becoming a top expert. In the end, they were just here to die. If not for Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao, they would have. Everyone was scared. Looking at the surroundings, the mountains were undulating and lush. Who would have guessed that this was a hellish place? Relying on such methods to forcibly improve one's cultivation is against the heavens. It's a grave sin. In the end, it will only backfire on oneself. Diwu Zhangzi stared at Mo Shiqian, his eyes cold. Originally, this old man didn't want to meddle in your affairs after all these years of self-cultivation. But you delivered yourselves to me, don't blame this old man for being rude. With that, he suddenly raised his hand. An invisible pressure quickly spread out in all directions. Condense. Following his shout, Chu Luiyue suddenly realized that the surrounding space was quickly solidifying. After the blood heaven mirror shattered, it disintegrated into countless fragments and scattered in all directions. Along the way, it carried several violent forces that almost tore the void apart and caused the world to tremble. However, after Diwu Zhangzi shouted, all the movements suddenly stopped. The fluttering leaves suddenly stopped in the air. The collapsed cliffs and rocks no longer rolled down. The air was filled with a faint smell of blood and a trace of icy cold air. A crease suddenly appeared in midair. Chu Luiyue widened his eyes in shock. That was a fold caused by forcibly twisting space. Then, a second, a third, this world seemed to be under Diwu Zhangzi's control. With a wave of his wrist, he caused the endless void to twist and fold. He didn't summon the divine realm, but he was the only master here. Break! Diwu Zhangzi spat out a word between his lips. The wrinkles quickly gathered around Mo Shiqian and surrounded him. Then, there was a loud bang. Boom! The huge space directly exploded. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 2025. There were no tricks, no hesitation. From the beginning to the end, Diwu Zhangze only made one move and said 2 words. And these 2 words easily determined Mo Shiqian's life and death. When the compressed space exploded, Mo Shiqian's figure was instantly swallowed. Chu Liuyue's pupils constricted, and she could hardly believe what she was seeing. Actually, this was the first time she had seen Diwu Zhangze make a move with her own eyes. Back in the Red Moon Desert, although she had fought with Diwu Zhangze and the others, their goal at that time was to improve her strength, so they knew how to hold back. She only knew that they were all very powerful, but she didn't know the upper limit of their strength. She had never seen them truly fight to the death with anyone. Furthermore, this was only Diwu Zhangze's aura, then, how strong was his true strength? Moreover, Diwu Zhangze wasn't the strongest among the 3 of them. Chu Liyue still remembered that Lan Xiao had once said in disdain, Diwu. He just knows how to play with space. He doesn't have much ability. It was precisely because of this sentence that Chu Liyue had sent Mu Hongyu to the Red Moon Desert and let her cultivate with Diwu Zhangze. Lan Xiao's words were still ringing in her ears. Looking at the scene in front of her, Chu Liyue was speechless. If this was just playing with space and not much ability, then how could the rest of the people in this world live? Ah! A miserable cry of agony could be heard coming from within. Even though the space there was chaotic and all kinds of black spatial rifts intertwined, and outsiders couldn't see anything at all, it wasn't difficult to imagine what kind of terrifying torture Mo Shiqian had experienced when they heard this sound. Many people from the Black Demon Cave were frightened out of their wits. Some even wanted to retreat. This person was simply too terrifying. The sect master's strength could be considered the top in the entire Black Demon Cave. Even he couldn't gain any advantage from the other party, let alone them. The world was silent, and Mo Shiqian's voice sounded especially mournful. It was chilling. However, this voice didn't last long. As time passed, the sound gradually weakened until it completely disappeared. Sect Master. How is it? Someone asked cautiously and fearfully. No one answered. He didn't need to guess to know that it wouldn't be any better. Hongan looked at the space that was crazily strangling and shuddered. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty and planned to leave quietly. This place was too dangerous. Especially when those 3 people were brought in by him. No matter what, he had to escape as soon as possible. However, just as he took a step forward, a strange voice sounded from the front. He was shocked and looked up, only to see a spatial fold surging toward him like a wave. Danger! Hongan knew that something was wrong. He moved his feet and was about to retreat quickly. But at this moment, how could he still be in control? The space around him suddenly froze, making him unable to move. He could only watch as the fold approached. No, Hongan's eyes widened in horror. The next moment, he felt a chill at his waist. The voice in his throat also stopped abruptly. He slowly looked down, only to see that the lower part of his body was gone. He was swallowed and strangled by the spatial fold. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Only then did the intense pain come flooding in from all directions. Hongan's eyes rolled back and he fainted. But soon, his upper body was also erased by the spatial fold that kept coming back and forth. In the blink of an eye, he was gone. This scene made everyone more and more silent. It also made those who were ready to make a move extremely frightened and dispelled those unnecessary thoughts. Diwu Zhangze didn't even look over. He only stroked his beard and said calmly, "Did I say you could leave?" He rarely made a move, but when he did, it had to be perfect. He hated disobedient people the most. "If I tell you to stay here, then stay here. Why are you moving around? You almost destroyed the spatial pattern that I had painstakingly conceived." If everyone knew what he was thinking at this moment, they would probably vomit blood again. It turned out that the lives of these people were not as important as that spatial fold in his eyes. Chu Luiyue exhaled softly. Diwu Zhangze was already so powerful. Then, what about Lan Xiao? And, what about Dabao? Moreover, Dabao seemed to be rather fearful of the divine ruins world and had been unwilling to make a move there. Even now, she was still very puzzled about this matter. Poof! At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Chu Luiyue put away her chaotic thoughts and looked up. In the chaotic space that was already distorted beyond recognition, a fist-sized black fog suddenly broke out from it. And within that black fog was an extremely familiar aura. That was Emo Shiqian's soul. Chu Luiyue's heart tightened. Diwu Zhangze had already made a move again. Sacrificing your life to protect your soul. You're smart. However, if you think you can escape like this, you're too naive. As soon as he finished speaking, several spatial folds appeared in the surroundings again and surrounded that black fog. However, at this moment, a series of explosions sounded one after another. It was the blood moon-like balls of light above the black demon cave people's heads that exploded one after another. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Before Do Min could even react, he felt an intense pain and his body completely dissipated. All the power in his body condensed into a bloody mist and merged with the black mist. At this time, the black fog had become much more solid. Inside, the blood was dense and eerie. Diwu Zhangze frowned. This Emo Shiqian was more cunning and ruthless than she had imagined. In order to survive, he sacrificed his subordinates without hesitation. In a short while, nearly 1/3 of the people in the Black Demon Cave had died in his hands. In Emo Shiqian's eyes, their lives were just a weight that could increase his chances of escaping. It was not worth mentioning. The power above the black fog became stronger and stronger, and its speed became faster and faster. Diwu Zhangze had already sealed this space, but he still could not completely control it. The sky fell into chaos. More and more people died, and the smell of blood filled the air. It had almost become an extremely tragic purgatory. The transparent cage followed closely behind, but as Emo Shiqian's soul devoured more and more power, the gap between the two finally began to widen. Diwu Zhangze's expression hardened. He was about to make a move when he suddenly frowned, and his hand movement stiffened for a moment. Senior Diwu. Rong Xiao immediately sensed that something was wrong. Hearing this, Chu Luiyue immediately looked over and realized that Diwu Zhangze's phantom had become much more transparent than before. And the aura and pressure around him had weakened a lot. Chu Luiyue's heart sank. What happened just now? Although Emo Shiqian was still struggling and trying to escape, it should not have much of an impact on Diwu Zhangze. He looked as if he had suddenly suffered some kind of attack. It's okay. Diwu Zhangze shook his head, took a deep breath, and gathered power to attack again. However, this short delay gave Emo Shiqian a chance. In mid-air, a blood-colored totem suddenly appeared. Then, the black fog rushed over quickly, directly breaking through the surrounding space's seal and pressure, and went straight for the blood-colored totem. Rong Xiao sensed that something was wrong and immediately looked over. His phoenix eyes were stunned, and he directly made a move. Chi! A golden flame flew out, and almost at the moment when the black fog was about to disappear into the blood-colored totem, it violently exploded. Hearing this, Chu Luiyue suddenly looked up. At this glance, she only saw that the black fog was fiercely bombarded by Rong Xiao's golden flame. The blood inside seemed to surge again, and there were faint cries of pain ringing in his ears. But in the end, the black fog barely squeezed into the blood-colored totem. Then, the blood-colored totem dissipated instantly. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Many people did not even have time to see the totem before it was over. Hateful. he still escaped. A trace of annoyance appeared on Diwu Zhang's face. Rong Xiu shook his head. Senior, don't worry too much. His soul has been seriously injured by me, and it will take a very long time and a lot of energy to recover. Furthermore, his physical body had already been damaged. It would likely be a long time before he stopped moving. Diwu Zhangzi shook his head and sighed. He knew that Rong Xiu was comforting him, but he was still a little unwilling. It was not difficult for him to kill Mo Shiqian. If not for just now, Chu Luyue stood at the side and watched this scene, frowning even more. In just a short while, Diwu Zhangzi's phantom was even more illusory than before. It was as if a gust of wind could blow it away. Compared to when he first appeared, he was as different as heaven and earth. There was really something wrong with him like this. Chu Luyue finally couldn't help but take a step forward, and there was some worry in her eyes. Senior Diwu, what's wrong with you? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Except for Mo Shiqian, no one else was allowed to enter. But now that Mo Shiqian had run away, his body was destroyed, and his soul was damaged, the enchantment naturally broke on its own. At the top of the mountain, there was a magnificent palace. It was obvious that it belonged to Mo Shiqian. As soon as they approached, a faint smell of blood spread from it. Chu Luyue frowned slightly. Rong Xiu flicked his finger, and a golden flame quickly flew out, forming a line of fire around the palace and surrounding it. As the flame burned, a strange sizzling sound kept coming. At the same time, there was also an unpleasant smell. Chu Luyue frowned even more. Diwu Zhangzi sneered. It seems that Mo Shiqian left a lot of dirty things behind. About 15 minutes later, the flames gradually extinguished. A gentle breeze blew by, and that unbearable smell finally dissipated. Even the smell of blood in the air disappeared. Rong Xiu took the lead. The three of them directly entered the palace. Walking into the palace, Chu Luyue quickly looked around. The ornaments and decorations here were all extremely luxurious. Treasures that couldn't be found outside could be seen everywhere here. It was obvious how extravagant his daily life was. It seems that even after evacuating from the Divine Ruins world, Mo Shiqian's life is still quite comfortable. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows and smiled. If they hadn't come here by accident, they didn't know when they would be able to fight Mo Shiqian head-on. He was hiding here really well. The Black Demon Cave has never been short of money. Diwu Zhangzi snorted. Over the years, countless cultivators have been bewitched by them, thinking that as long as they join them, they can soar into the sky and become a top expert in the world. For this, they didn't hesitate to go bankrupt and pay an endless price. But they don't know that this is not a paradise for cultivation, but a purgatory. He knew quite a bit about the Black Demon Cave. Although he hadn't been in contact with them for a long time, it was still the same old thing today. After so many years, the inheritance of the Black Demon Cave had never been broken. Chu Luyue nodded in agreement. Disregarding everything else, weren't the dozens of cultivators outside here for this very reason? Although there aren't many people in the Black Demon Cave, they don't seem weak. Chu Luyue pondered for a moment and said strangely. Even if they are carefully selected geniuses, it's still a little beyond common sense. Even a first-rate aristocratic family like Yuntianke only had a handful of venerate gods in its ranks. However, venerable gods seem to be very common in the Black Demon Cave. However, the strength of these people seems to be slightly weaker than ordinary cultivators of the same level. Chu Luyue thought of the scene when he fought with those people. Hong'an was fine, but although Do Min was in the venerable god realm, the strength he displayed was barely satisfactory. Not to mention a top existence like Yi Wentao, he couldn't even compare to ordinary venerable gods. You're right. Compared to real cultivators, they are indeed a lot worse. Rong Xiu said. Chu Luiyue asked curiously. Real cultivators. This meant, was he referring to those people in the Black Demon Cave? Rongxiu raised his chin. There was a huge wall in front of them. We'll know what's going on when we go in. There was a door on both sides of the wall. The door was unlocked and opened with a push. But thinking about it carefully, it wasn't difficult to understand. Most of the time, only Mo Shiqian was here. He didn't need to worry that someone would come here. After breaking through the door, creak, the door opened, and Rongxiu walked in first. Diwu Zhangse and Chu Luiyue followed closely behind. When he saw the scene in front of him, Chu Luiyue was stunned. The space behind the wall was extremely empty, without any extra objects. Except for a sand table in the middle. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2028. On the sand table, the mountain range was lush and undulating. With just one look, Chu Luiyue immediately recognized that this was the sand table in Black Fiend Cave's territory. She walked closer and saw that there were blood spots on the small mountain peaks, flickering with a faint glow. Chu Luiyue focused her gaze and took a closer look. Only then did she realize that the blood spots actually contained a faint suppression. Suddenly, she turned her gaze and found that a mountain peak beside her had collapsed. This was the mountain that Hongan had brought them to in the beginning. The mountain outside had collapsed, so the model on the sand table had also changed. This, Chu Luiyue suddenly realized something and sucked in a cold breath. This sand table is connected to the outside world. Rongxiu finished her sentence. His tone was not surprised, and his expression was indifferent, as if he had already expected this. Mo Shiqian can control everything outside through this sand table, and what happens outside will be quickly reflected on this sand table so that Mo Shiqian can quickly know. This was why even if he did not come out and did not listen to any reports from the servants, he still knew what was happening outside. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding and looked at the sand table carefully, but the waves in her heart did not calm down for a long time. Mo Shiqian was really a very capable person. Cough, 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 Diwu Zhangse suddenly coughed. Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and hurried forward. Senior Diwu, how are you? She had felt that his condition was a little strange just now, but now, his aura seemed to be weaker. Diwu Zhangse waved his hand. I'm fine, I'm fine. This aura has been trapped for many years. Now that it's out, it's inevitable that I'm not used to it. I'll be fine after resting for a while. How could Chu Luiyue not be worried? She didn't believe a single word of the reason he gave her. After pondering for a moment, Chu Luiyue asked. Did something happen in the Red Moon Desert? Diwu Zhangse paused and subconsciously wanted to deny it. What? Before he finished speaking, he looked up and met a pair of dark and bright eyes. Those eyes were as bright as stars, as if they had seen through everything. Diwu Zhangse could not say the rest of his words. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed deeply. Recently, there has been some trouble in the Red Moon Desert. In the past, the old man's aura was sealed in the Blood Heaven realm and had no connection with the soul under the Red Moon Desert, so it was not affected. But now that he has broken out of the Blood Heaven realm, he will inevitably be implicated. Implicated? Chu Luiyue inexplicably felt. Diwu Zhangse seemed to be weighing his words. Although the old man isn't weak, he doesn't have a divine body, so many things aren't very convenient for him. Chu Luiyue's heart fell. Otherwise, with the strength of Diwu Zhangse and the other two, how could they have been injured? Moreover, during this period of time, there had been no news from Debao. Diwu Zhangse comforted her. Girl, don't worry. It's just a small injury. It's not a big deal. Chu Luiyue stared straight at him. Diwu Zhangse suddenly could not say the rest of his words. After a long while, he finally shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. "Girl, you're too smart, nothing could be hidden from her," Chu Luiyue said. "I'll go back with you and help you and Senior Lan Shao refine the divine body." She was the one who helped refine Debao's divine body. Now that she was much stronger than before, she should be more confident. She originally planned to go to the Red Moon Desert after the matter in the Peach Blossom Dock was over. Now was the time. Diwu Zhangzi shook his head. "Girl, you can't go now." "Can't? Why?" Chu Luiyue was puzzled. She had been to the Red Moon Desert many times, and it was just outside the Divine Ruins world. She could reach there quickly without crossing the Gate Realm. Diwu Zhangzi paused for a moment. "Lan Shao and I are not as strong as Debao. Therefore, even with your help, we still won't be able to refine our divine bodies in our current state. Even if you go, it'll be in vain. Moreover, the Red Moon Desert is in a dangerous period now. Any powerhouse below the level of a venerable god will die without a trace. If you go." Chu Luiyue was stunned, then she lowered her head slightly. She knew about the dangerous period of the Red Moon Desert. Every 100 years, the Red Moon Desert would be shrouded by the blood moon for a month. Generally speaking, when the blood moon appeared, Debao and the other two could come out from underground and wander around freely. But the dangerous period was different. During that month, the entire desert was dark and blood-red, and the energy of heaven and earth was violent. It was extremely dangerous. That was why it was called the dangerous period. "I know that your strength has increased greatly, and you can even fight against a venerable god powerhouse. But you're not a real venerable god after all. As long as you haven't broken through that threshold, you can't enter the Red Moon Desert during the dangerous period." Diwu Zhangzi sighed. "During this month, the three of us can't even take care of ourselves, let alone take care of you. If those two guys know that I brought you back, it'll really cause a ruckus." In the end, it was because they were worried about her. Chu Liuyue's thoughts turned. Dangerous period, no wonder there was no news from Debao for so long. He was really delayed. "But, Senior Diwu, I remember Senior Lan Shao mentioned before that the last dangerous period of the Red Moon Desert was less than 100 years ago, right?" Chu Luiyue asked uncertainly. She had heard Lan Shao mention the dangerous period a few years ago in the Red Moon Desert. Chapter 2029. Seeing Diwu Zhangzi's insistence, Chu Luiyue had no choice but to agree. "Then, I'll wait for your news." Diwu Zhangzi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Yes. During this period of time, you can prepare the things first. The old man is fine, but Lan Shao is a little troublesome. You know that he's always very picky about his face. If he wants to condense a divine body, he'll need a lot of things. Then, he mentioned some of the herbs and other things that he needed. Chu Liuyue's eyebrows relaxed. "Don't worry, Peach Blossom Dock has all these things." Diwu Zhangzi nodded in relief. Then it settled. Chu Luiyue naturally agreed, but there was still one more tricky thing. Then, your aura, even if he was a top powerhouse, such an aura still needed to be attached to something to be completely preserved. Since the Blood Heaven realm was gone, he had to find the next one as soon as possible. Diwu Zhangzi waved his hand indifferently. "It doesn't matter, as long as it's a venerable artifact." He knew that with Chu Luiyue and Rongxiu's wealth, they could still afford a venerable artifact. But that wasn't what Chu Luiyue was worried about. She hesitated for a moment but still spoke. "Senior Diwu, I have a lot of venerable artifacts here, but, even if you can hide them, how will you return to the Red Moon Desert?" The expression on Diwu Zhangzi's face instantly froze. Obviously, he had also neglected this problem. He frowned as he felt a headache coming on. "I'll escort you back." Rongxiu's deep and pleasant voice sounded. Chu Luiyue and Diwu Zhangze looked at him at the same time. Rong Xiao smiled faintly. There shouldn't be a more suitable candidate than me. Senior Diwu, what do you think? Chu Luiyue immediately understood. That's right. Rong Xiao was now a venerable god powerhouse. Of course, he could go to the Red Moon Desert. Diwu Zhangze nodded immediately. Yes, yes. You can go together. Chu Luiyue's anxious heart also relaxed. With Rong Xiao accompanying him, there shouldn't be any problems. If she wanted to go to the Red Moon Desert, she would have to either wait for the dangerous months to pass or break through to the God realm. In comparison, the former was easier to achieve. She had just condensed a divine body not long ago, and now she wanted to cross the threshold of the God realm. It was a bit exaggerated. As if seeing that she was still a little uneasy, Diwu Zhangze comforted her. Little you don't have to be too worried. With your talent, it won't be long before you become a god. He spoke with absolute certainty and sincerity. It was as if he could already see that day. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but smile. You really think highly of me. All along, De Bao and the others had been especially fond of her. At the same time, their expectations were also extremely high. In the eyes of others, there were many things that were impossible to do, but they seemed to think that she could do it. Of course, she did it all. Although she had suffered a lot in the process, now that she thought about it, she had indeed benefited a lot. She tilted her head and looked thoughtfully at Rong Xiao. Speaking of which, Rong Xiao's cultivation seemed to be very smooth. A few years ago, he had already broken through to the God realm and had 2 divine bodies. Not long ago, he directly broke through to the God realm in the God-slaying mound. The gap that was as difficult as climbing the sky for thousands of cultivators was easily crossed by him. Chu Luiyue had never seen Rong Xiao worry about cultivation. It seemed that he could break through as long as he wanted to. As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Rong Xiao asked with great interest. What are you laughing at? Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. I'm thinking. Now everyone says that I'm so talented that I can fight a god in the God realm. However, what they don't know is that compared to me, your talent is likely stronger, not weaker. She suddenly leaned closer and asked with a teasing smile. Your Highness, why do I feel that cultivation isn't that challenging for you at all? If I didn't know that you were dreaming, I would have thought that you could break through at will as long as you want. Diwu Zhangze looked up at Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao's smile deepened as he gently caressed her head. What are you talking about? Chu Luiyue was originally just joking, so she shrugged her shoulders and smiled. Rong Xiao's eyes flashed and looked at the sand table again. I wonder where Mo Shiqian escaped to this time. Chu Luiyue's heart sank when she heard this. Mo Shiqian's physical body had been destroyed, and only a soul was left. This was even more difficult to find. The world inside and outside the divine ruins was vast. Who knew what he would do next? She followed Rong Xiao's gaze and suddenly narrowed her eyes. She walked closer and saw that the originally flickering blood-red light on the destroyed mountain peak had already dimmed. There were some other spots next to it that were the same. The light was dim, and there was no vitality. Mo Shiqian's cultivation should also be based on this sand table. Diwu Zhangze also walked over and said in a deep voice. To be precise, the entire Black Demon Cave is like this. Chu Luiyue recalled everything that had happened before and fell into deep thought. They set up xian formations everywhere and used various methods to lure those cultivators in. Finally, they devoured their power to increase their own cultivation. Diwu Zhangze nodded solemnly. That's right. Almost all of their power comes from this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2030. Using this method to forcibly plunder the power of others could greatly increase the speed of cultivation, and allow one to complete the breakthrough of various levels in an extremely short period of time. Compared to ordinary cultivation methods, this method was definitely a shortcut. This was also the usual method of the Black Demon Cave. Diwu Zhangzi shook his head. Back then, only Mo Yao and a few others used this method. I didn't expect their entire sect to have fallen into the mire of greed. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. This also explained her previous doubts. Using this method to cultivate, the experts of the Black Demon Cave emerged extremely quickly, but because they did not cultivate with their own true abilities, the power they obtained was mixed and mottled, and their combat strength was extremely weak. How could there be a shortcut on the path of cultivation? In order to expand their forces, the Black Demon Cave made everyone use this method to cultivate. Although it could greatly expand the sect in a short period of time, it was not a solution in the long run. For example, while there were many gods present today, only a few of them were actually capable of fighting. Once they encountered a powerful one, they would immediately be defeated. It was just a shell. What do you plan to do with those people outside? Diwu Zhangzi asked. Mo Shiqian killed a group when he left, but there were still hundreds of people outside. Chu Luiyue looked at Rongxiu. Rongxiu's thin lips curled slightly. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. After Chu Luiyue and the others entered the hall, everyone gathered together. Above the almost razed ruins, a red-gold flame burned brightly, like a wall, dividing the crowd into two parts. On one side was Ziji and the others who came to participate in the trial, and on the other side were the remnants of the Black Demon Cave. At this time, they were all trapped in a transparent cage. Dumpling and Chang Wanzhou were in charge of guarding. Chang Wanzhou stood with his sword in his arms. His body was stained with a lot of blood, and he looked quite wretched. However, he stood straight as if he would never bend, and would not be defeated by any force. His delicate and beautiful face was indifferent and cold, without any expression. It was already evening. The afterglow of the sun shone on his body, and his soft golden short hair fluttered in the wind like a painting. Suddenly, Chang Wanzhou felt a small hand pulling at his clothes. Xiaozhou, Xiaozhou. He lowered his head. Dumpling was looking up at him curiously. What's up? Chang Wanzhou didn't want to say anything, but he remembered that Dumpling was Chu Luiyue's contracted magical beast, so he opened his mouth. His voice was as cold as ever. However, it wasn't the first day that Dumpling knew him, so she didn't mind. She grinned. Her grape-like eyes seemed to be glowing, dazzling and bright. Little Zhou, tell me, how did you recover so quickly? If she didn't sense it wrongly, Chang Wanzhou's injuries were already mostly healed. It was also because of this that Dumpling made up her mind to come over and ask for clarification. That's all you want to ask? Chang Wanzhou was a little surprised. Dumpling nodded quickly. She was really curious. One had to know that Chang Wanzhou had been seriously injured when he fought with Mo Shiqian. His external and internal injuries were quite serious. But it had only been 2 hours, and he was almost healed. Dumpling was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix, and she had the purest bloodline. Her body was extremely resistant to beatings, and her recovery ability was unparalleled. There were very few people in the world who could compare to her. However, Chang Wanzhou was one of them. That was why she was particularly curious. Chang Wanzhou had always looked thin and weak on the surface. How could he? It's been like this since I became a great deity. Chang Wanzhou was silent for a moment before answering. Dumpling was stunned. That's it. That's it. Chang Wanzhou's answer was very boring, and it seemed that he had no intention of continuing to explain. Dumpling tugged at his clothes again and still refused to give up. Then, is it because your divine body is very powerful? I haven't condensed a divine body yet. Chang Wanzhou spoke, directly blocking Dumpling's remaining words. She smacked her lips and scratched her head. No divine body. Then, that shouldn't be. Chang Wanzhou wasn't a divine beast. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to recover so quickly. Moreover, his great deity strength seemed to be very strong. Dumpling raised her head again and stared at him for a long time, puzzled. Chang Wanzhou's expression was indifferent and he didn't say anything else. He really had nothing to say. Because what he said just now was the truth. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't notice the problem with his body. It was just that he had been thinking about Chu Luiyue before, so he didn't think too much about it. At this time, Tuanzi's words reminded him. But he didn't have an answer. Oh! Dumpling suddenly exclaimed in a low voice. My hand is frozen. Chang Wanzhou lowered his head and saw that there was a thin layer of ice on her little hand. He frowned. Dumpling also raised her head and looked at him with a shocked expression. Just now, she only tugged at his clothes. And there was no ice on his body. How? A reddish gold flame quickly burned, and the thin layer of ice quickly melted. This bit of cold air didn't pose a threat to Dumpling, but the reddish gold heavenly phoenix was an existence of the purest yang. Ordinary cold air couldn't cause her body to freeze. Dumpling suddenly thought of something and widened her eyes slightly. The cold in your body. Before she could finish, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. It was Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao who had returned. Seeing Dumpling and Chang Wanzhou's expressions, Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. What's wrong? What are you talking about? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2031. Chang Wanzhou said, It's nothing. Dumpling pouted and swallowed the rest of her words. She was smart and could tell that Chang Wanzhou didn't want to talk about it, so she didn't want to continue asking. Anyway, there would be time and opportunities to find out in the future. Ah, you. Dumpling happily threw herself at Chu Luiyue. She was still young, and she still had some childishness. Other than Chu Luiyue, her heart could not contain anything else. Now that she saw Chu Luiyue, she immediately forgot about other things and people. Chu Luiyue lowered his head and smiled as he patted Dumpling's head. Ah, you, when are we going to the Red Moon Desert? Dumpling asked curiously. The matter here had come to an end. They should be leaving soon. Chu Luiyue shook his head. Let's go back to Peach Blossom Dock first. We'll go after a while. Ah. Oh. Dumpling was a little surprised, but she didn't think much of it. No matter where they went, it didn't make any difference to her. Anyway, she just needed to follow Ah Yu. Chu Luiyue pinched her chubby little face, then looked up at Chang Wanzhou. Master. Chang Wanzhou bowed. Chu Luiyue looked at him steadily, and a hint of, as expected, flashed in his eyes. Previously, she found that Chang Wanzhou's recovery ability was amazing. It hadn't been long, but his aura was basically back to normal. She suppressed this thought and turned her gaze to look at the people trapped in the transparent cage. And those people were looking at her at this time. Fear, despair, uneasiness, everyone had different expressions, but they were obviously in awe and fear of Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao, who had appeared again. After what happened before, everyone now understood that these two people were the most dangerous people in the world to provoke. Not only was his strength extraordinary, but his background was also extraordinary. Then, he thought about the things that had spread throughout the Divine Ruins world. How could they not feel uneasy? Some people were looking behind the two of them, but they didn't see Diwu Zhangse. After all, the exquisite technique was left behind by him. If he didn't show up, then they, sorry to trouble you, senior. Chu Luiyue said softly. Diwu Zhangse's voice was heard instantly. It's just a small matter, what's so troublesome about it? Just as he finished speaking, the transparent cage suddenly began to tighten. The line seemed to be under the control of some kind of power, quickly twisting and changing shape. No! Some people realized that something was wrong, and fear flashed across their faces. Even if they were extremely disappointed in the Black Demon Cave and Imo Shirchen, it would be a lie to say that they had no intention of surviving. In the face of life and death, not many people could remain calm. However, before he could finish shouting, he stopped abruptly. That person's figure completely disappeared into the intertwined transparent lines. More than one person had such an encounter. In the exquisite technique, everyone who was still alive was trapped in the Black Demon Cave. At this time, under Diwu Zhangzi's control, they were all killed by the exquisite technique. They didn't have the strength to fight back at all. Most people didn't even have the chance to make a sound before their souls were destroyed. On the ground, the color of blood spread out and then quickly disappeared. The transparent cage became smaller and smaller, and finally, after a quarter of an hour, it returned to the size of a palm. There was complete silence. He Ziji and the others were only separated by a wall of fire. Everyone watched this scene in silence. In fact, most people were already numb. Previously, when Mo Shiqian was escaping, he used the lives of countless subordinates to build momentum for himself. His methods were ruthless, and the scene was tragic. In comparison, dying silently in the exquisite technique was much better. After seeing a hellish scene, it was much easier for him to accept other things. Only the thick smell of blood in the air showed what had just happened here. Swoosh! Rongxiu raised his wrist slightly, and the exquisite technique flew into his sleeve. Now, Diwu Zhangzi had attached himself to a venerable artifact again. At this time, that thing was on Rongxiu. Hence, when Diwu Zhangzi summoned the Linglong technique back, it was naturally through Rongxiu. Many people subconsciously looked in the direction of the exquisite technique, but as soon as their eyes landed on the figure in white, they hurriedly looked away. They didn't even dare to look at his face. This man was noble and unparalleled, looking down on the world. Even if he was just standing there casually, he still exuded pride and nobility from his bones. This small space was created by the Black Demon Cave using extraordinary means. Now that the Blood Heaven realm is broken, Mo Shiqian fled, and the people of the Black Demon Cave were annihilated, there is no longer any support here and will soon collapse. You should leave as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue said. Just now in the hall, Rongxiu and she had worked together to completely destroy the sand table. This place would soon become a ruin, or even cease to exist. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. In fact, it wasn't that they didn't expect this outcome, but when they heard it, they couldn't help but feel a little complicated. After all, they had all come with great ambitions at the beginning. They thought that after passing the trial, they would be able to enter the Divine Ruins world and get a better chance to cultivate. Who knew that it would end like this? Chu Luiyue raised her chin. The barrier over there is already very weak. You can all leave directly. With that, she looked at Rongxiu. They also had to part ways and leave. Be careful. Chu Luiyue said. Rongxiu nodded, his eyes deep. I'll be back soon. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. In fact, with Rongxiu's speed, it wouldn't take too long to get to the Red Moon Desert from here. Moreover, his strength was extraordinary, so there was nothing to worry about. Okay. Then I'll wait for you at the Peach Blossom Cove. Rongxiu's eyes flashed. Anyway, there's nothing urgent over there. I'll send you off first. Although he knew that Chu Luiyue wasn't weak now, he still couldn't rest assured. Only by sending her back personally could he feel at ease. Chu Luiyue understood what he was thinking, so she didn't reject him. She thought for a while and said, okay. We'll go back through the gate realm over there. She was naturally referring to the Tao Gate realm behind the Black Demon Cave Mountains. When they came, the power in the Gate realm went berserk, causing the void to tremble, and finally sent them out of Cloud State City. If they went back now, it would be impossible to find the way back. The best way was to go back through this Gate realm first. Rong Xiao nodded. After the two discussed everything, they didn't hesitate anymore and directly set off. However, just as they turned around and didn't have time to take a step, they suddenly heard someone shout behind them. "Both of you, please wait." Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks and looked back. The one who spoke was He Ziji. "Is there anything else?" He Ziji took a deep breath, as if he was still a little nervous, and then directly knelt down. "He Ziji and my sister's lives were saved by Your Highness the Holy Sun and Your Highness the Princess. If you don't mind, in the future, He Ziji is willing to follow the two of you and serve you faithfully." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 2032. You. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Before he could speak, He Xilan also knelt down. "Brother, what you said is also what I think." The two of them knelt down firmly. Their expressions were sincere, and their words were sincere. Chu Luiyue could see that the two of them really thought so. "But, it's just a small matter. Moreover, this time, we did those things for ourselves. We didn't mean to save you. You don't have to take it to heart." Chu Luiyue smiled and waved his hand carelessly. He Ziji and his sister were resolute. "Perhaps to the princess, it's just a small matter. But it's true that you saved our lives. We should repay the kindness of saving our lives." He took a deep breath and revealed a trace of embarrassment on his face. "Speaking of which, our strength is low and we indeed don't have the qualifications to be by your side. But this feeling of gratitude was absolutely genuine. If you need us in the future, we will go through fire and water without hesitation." As he spoke, he bent down, bowed solemnly, and kowtowed. He Xilan was originally quite eloquent, but at this time, she didn't know how to say anything. After hesitating for a long time, she could only kowtow with He Ziji. At first, they didn't feel it. But after thinking about it, they had encountered a lot of trouble on the way. If it wasn't for Chu Luiyue and the others, they would have died many times over. It was only right for him to thank her. However, they did have self-awareness. Look at Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao, what kind of people were by their side? Not to mention the other backers, just the strength of a follower like Chang Wanzhou was already at the level of a high god. People like them really didn't have the qualifications to be by their side. The reason why they said this was not for anything else, but purely to express their gratitude and longing. Their seriousness made Chu Luiyue not know whether to laugh or cry. At first, they were willing to travel with He Ziji and the others purely to be able to sneak in and see what the so-called trial was all about. As for the actions that followed, actually, he didn't do it on purpose. It was just that if he wanted to take care of the Black Demon Cave, he couldn't avoid doing those things. These are all small matters. You don't have to care too much about them. Go back to your own places. Before Chu Luiyue could finish his words, everyone in front of him suddenly fell to their knees. "Brother, he is right. Actually, it's not just you two siblings. Even we are only able to survive because of the kindness of the Holy Sun and the Empress concubine. If you're talking about repayment, we naturally can't do nothing." "That's right. From now on, if you have any orders, we will obey them. We are weak and cannot be compared to Lord Chang. Only our hot-bloodedness and our lives can make up for it. I hope the Saint's son and Empress concubine won't mind." Everyone spoke one after another. Every word was from the bottom of their hearts. For a moment, the crowd was agitated. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment, then looked at Rong Xiao. She really didn't expect that they would have such a reaction. As she listened to their words, her originally calm heart seemed to be stirred up by waves of emotions. She never thought of herself as a good person. Even if she occasionally saved people, it was under extremely special circumstances. She rarely took these things to heart. But at this moment, her heart was stirred. Pairs of sincere and eager eyes looked at her just like that. They were sincerely grateful. "Let them follow you back to the Peach Blossom Cove," Rong Xiao suddenly said. "What?" Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. When he Ziji and the others heard this, they were all shocked and subconsciously quieted down. Rong Xiao's lips curled into a faint smile. The Peach Blossom Cove has 2 gates that can connect the inside and outside of the Divine Ruins world. Not only can it accept experts from the outside world, but it can also defend against dangers from everywhere. All of the people present were quite talented in cultivation. If they could be brought to the Peach Blossom Cove and cultivate there, many of them would definitely be able to increase their strength by another level. Moreover, these dozens of people were loyal to Chu Luiyue and were trustworthy. Bringing them back might not be a bad thing. This was the most suitable choice at the moment. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. Rong Xiao's words made sense. Then, it settled. She made up her mind and looked at everyone. "All right. Then all of you will follow me back to the Peach Blossom Cove." The group of people arrived in front of the gate realm. Looking at the light screen that fell from the sky, everyone's faces were filled with undisguised excitement and agitation. After all, this was the purpose of their trip. After this gate realm was the Divine Ruins world. Which cultivator in the world didn't want to enter and become an expert? "Let's stop here for now." Chu Luiyue looked at Rong Xiao and said softly. Rong Xiao nodded and glanced at the gate realm. There are no totems above this gate realm, so it should be an ownerless land. The Black Demon Cave must have gone through careful screening to choose this place. In order to keep it a secret, they didn't even engrave the Black Demon Cave's totems on this gate realm. Rumble. There was a loud sound. Everyone looked back and saw that the undulating mountain range suddenly began to collapse. The mountain rocks rolled down and turned into dust. The wind blew, and everything was white. In the distance, the silver barrier also began to shake violently. "Looks like this place is going to collapse completely," Chu Luiyue said softly. She then took a deep breath in and looked at Rong Xiao fixedly. "Then we'll leave first. You, be careful on your way. If you see Debeo and the others, say hello for me." With that, she turned around and stepped into the gate realm. This gate realm was the same as the other gate realms. There were no accidents like the Peach Blossom Cove's gate realm. After Chu Luiyue entered, the others also entered one after another. After a while, their figures all disappeared into the gate realm. It was only then that Rong Xiao retracted his gaze. He glanced sideways at the collapsing space. "Senior Diwu, I'll send you back." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure quickly disappeared from where he stood. Rong Xiao quickly left Cloud State City. After the Black Demon Cave's destruction, this place had become a dead city. After Rong Xiao walked out of the city gate, he paused for a moment and chose a direction. Diwu Zhangzi knew how to get to the Red Moon Desert, so he didn't have to worry about it. Rong Xiao was extremely fast. After about a day, he arrived at the Great Desolate Swamp again. As soon as he stepped out of the void, Rong Xiao already felt that something was wrong. His eyebrows twitched slightly. He stood still and looked ahead. This was the intersection of the 3 realms of the Great Desolate Swamp. Mirror Lake and the Mystic Forest were calm at this time. Only the Red Moon Desert was dark, and a blood moon hung high in the sky. The crimson light shrouded everything. Diwu Zhangzi's voice came in a low voice. "Rong Xiao, you don't have to go in. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. A scarlet gold flame flew out from her palm. Boom! Following the loud crash, everyone was surprised to see that there was a layer of transparent barrier shaking violently in midair. This mountain range was also tightly covered by a barrier. However, that layer of spirit formation was not stable. After a short moment, a crack appeared. Then, with a bang sound, the enchantment shattered. Whoosh! In an instant, countless figures flew out from the mountain range. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and saw the densely packed figures heading toward them. It's the demonic beasts. Someone in the crowd behind her exclaimed. No! It's the divine beasts. Seven-leaf mystic snake, phoenix sky by Qi, flying snow fox god, the ones at the front were indeed the divine beasts. As for the ones at the back, Chu Luiyue glanced at them and found that the lowest level was actually a 9th grade divine beasts. Danger! Everyone suddenly became nervous. There were so many demonic beasts, at least 100 of them. If they attacked as a group, then they would not be a match for them. After all, there were divine beasts among them. Chang Wanzhou took a step forward and was about to attack, but he was stopped by Chu Luiyue. Wait! Chang Wanzhou looked at her strangely, but saw that not only was she not nervous at all, she was even smiling. It seemed like she had a card up her sleeve for everything in front of her. Chang Wanzhou calmed down and retreated behind her. Those demonic beasts were rapidly approaching. The atmosphere became more and more tense. Everyone unconsciously quieted down and stared at the scene in front of them. Outside the divine ruins world, 9th grade demonic beasts were already extremely precious existences, and divine beasts were even rarer. Now that they suddenly saw so many divine beasts attacking, everyone was naturally nervous. However, just when everyone thought that they were about to be surrounded by these demonic beasts, they saw them suddenly stop. At this time, they were only a few dozen steps away from Chu Luiyue. Then, those demonic beasts all knelt on the ground. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? Why did these demonic beasts seem to be so grateful and respectful to Chu Luiyue? These are the demonic beasts raised by the Black Demon Cave. Chu Luiyue said softly. Everyone was stunned. Chu Luiyue walked forward. The closer she got, the more respectful the demonic beasts were. They all lowered their heads. Chu Luiyue finally stopped in front of a blood-red cloud leopard. This was a female leopard. In its mouth, there was a small bowl. There were dark red bloodstains that dripped down drop by drop. Chu Luiyue squatted down and stretched out her hand. The red cloud leopard subconsciously took a step back and quickly raised its head to look at Chu Luiyue with deep respect in its eyes. Chu Luiyue was stunned and looked back. Dumpling had actually followed her over at some point in time. At this time, she was curiously staring at the little thing in the red cloud leopard's mouth. Chu Luiyue coughed. Dumpling, step back. Ah. Why? Dumpling opened her big black grape-like eyes and asked innocently. Chu Luiyue held her forehead helplessly. The red cloud leopard is just an ordinary divine beast. You're too close and scared it. Dumpling was an ancient divine beast. Even if she changed into her human form and restrained her aura, the bloodline pressure from her bones couldn't be concealed. The reason why these demonic beasts were so respectful was partly because she opened the barrier and let them out, and partly because Dumpling was here. Dumpling. Oh. She curled her lips slightly. I just wanted to take a look. She had clearly tried her best to suppress her aura. Chu Luiyue ignored her. As the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan who had already opened 5 meridians, Dumpling still didn't have the slightest idea of her own identity and strength. Most of the time, she was still carefree. But this was fine. Tuanzi was still young, so she should be innocent and pure. Seeing Dumpling step back, the red cloud leopard let go of its mouth. A soft ball landed in Chu Liyue's palm. This was a small leopard that looked like it had just been born. However, there was a circle of wounds on its neck. The blood just now dripped from here. Chu Liyue frowned. This was left behind by the people of the Black Demon Cave. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2034. The wound was very deep and dripping with blood. White bones could be vaguely seen. It was obvious that the person who did this was ruthless, not even sparing this newborn little thing. Chu Liyue's eyes turned cold as she gently covered the leopard's wound with her palm. A faint reddish-gold light flickered. When she raised her hand again, the little thing's wound had already scabbed over, and its aura had recovered significantly. It lay obediently in Chu Liyue's palm, turned over, and fell into a deep sleep. Chu Liyue and Dumpling had the same life contract, and the energy in her body had a strong restorative effect on these magical beasts. If Dumpling were to do it directly, the bloodline pressure would be too strong, and this little thing might not be able to bear it. Chu Liyue did it at the right time. The female leopard was nervous at first, but then showed a grateful expression. Although it was a divine beast, its bloodline was of a low level and had no human status. It knelt on the ground and let out a low whimper. It was gratitude and also submission. Chu Liyue glanced at it. As expected, she saw the marks on the neck of the red cloud leopard that could only be caused by admonishment. The people of the Black Demon Cave were already dead, but these magical beasts were still alive. It was obvious that it was as she had expected. They did not form contracts with these magical beasts, but only trapped them and used extreme methods to tame them. In this way, the number of magical beasts they could control would greatly exceed the number of people they had. She sent the little thing back. The red cloud leopard carefully stepped forward and picked up the little leopard. It looked up at Chu Liyue, tears falling from the corners of its eyes. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Don't worry, the people of the Black Demon Cave are already dead. From now on, no one will imprison and torture you. Chu Liyue looked up slightly. At a rough glance, the number of these magical beasts was close to 200. More importantly, there were still magical beasts rushing over from the forest behind. She let out a long sigh and said, "From now on, you should all go your separate ways." The most suitable place for them was naturally the unrestrained wilderness. The world is so big, where can't I go? However, after Chu Liyue finished saying those words, the magic beasts before him did not move. Chu Liyue was stunned. He waved his hand again. Go. They still didn't move. You, they want to follow you. Dumpling could not help but interject. Chu Liyue turned around. Follow me. She was not their master, so why should they follow her? Dumpling's eyes flickered as she said in a clear voice, yes. They have been trapped here for a long time. Now that you have rescued them, they are grateful and naturally want to follow you. Speaking of this, she suddenly thought of something and hurriedly ran over. The red string and golden bell on her head jingled, and a pair of white little feet ran very fast. All of the magical beasts took a step back in unison, then lowered their heads in reverence and respect. You. Dumpling hugged Chu Liyue's thigh and looked up at him. You can take them back, but you can't contract with them anymore. You can only be mine. After thinking for a while, she bit her finger with some hesitation. Oh right, and Zi-Chin, then he can only be ours. But you can only love me the most. Chu Liyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. He pinched her chubby little face. Don't worry, you alone are enough. How can I have other skills? Besides, other than Qin, there shouldn't be any other magic beasts that can withstand your pressure. Speaking of which, it was really a coincidence. If either Qin or Dumpling was not strong enough or had a strong enough bloodline, they would not be able to coexist with each other. It wasn't easy for him to get to where he was today. Hearing his promise, Dumpling was relieved. I knew you was the best. Chu Luiyue looked at the magical beasts hesitantly. Then just let them follow us. Dumpling waved her hand. It's not like Peach Blossom Cove can't afford to raise them. Chu Luiyue thought to himself. Although the Peach Blossom Cove was rich in resources, there were not many magical beasts, let alone divine beasts. It would be good to bring these magical beasts back. And in this way, I, Dumpling, will be the real boss in the future. Ha 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 ha. None of the magical beasts dared to disobey her command. Think about it. How awe-inspiring would that be? As long as they followed her, wouldn't her chances of defeating Qin in the future be greater? At this thought, Dumpling's smile became even brighter, as if she could already imagine the wonderful life in the future. Chu Luiyue was speechless. She rubbed the space between her eyebrows with a headache. Dumpling seemed to have forgotten that she was the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, the kind that was personally appointed by the ancestors. As long as she wanted, the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan would follow her lead. They were the most honorable beings in the world. However, seeing that she was so happy, Chu Luiyue could not be bothered to remind her. She would naturally remember in the future. She pondered for a moment and finally nodded. Then, let's go back together. Hearing this, the magical beast's eyes were filled with joy. Although the pressure on Dumpling's body was too strong, almost making them not dare to approach her. After all, she was a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix with the purest bloodline. Such a noble existence was naturally attractive to other magical beasts. If they could follow her, it would be a great blessing. Moreover, Chu Luiyue had saved them. Was there a better home than this? Therefore, they were very happy about this matter. Therefore, after subduing a group of cultivation geniuses, Chu Luiyue had another group of high-level magical beasts behind her. Looking at the group behind her that had expanded by a lot, Chu Luiyue was a little dazed for a moment. Didn't she just want to see what was going on with the door at Peach Blossom Dock? How long had it been? She actually brought so many people and beasts back for no reason. At this moment, the void not far away suddenly shook. Following this, two figures walked out from it. Chu Luiyue looked back and was slightly shocked. Yi, Lin Qifei. Why are you here? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2035. The two figures who walked out were none other than Yi and Lin Qifei, who had been separated from her before. Upon seeing Chu Luiyue, the two of them looked at each other and revealed a look of relief. Then, the two moved and came to Chu Luiyue and bowed together. Greetings, Master. Chu Luiyue raised her hand. No need to be so polite. But, you. She had just walked out of the door realm and didn't even do much. She had just collected a group of demonic beasts and they had appeared here. This was obviously not a coincidence. After the chaos in the door realm of Peach Blossom Dock, the two of us were separated from Master and His Highness. Since then, we have been looking for the two of you. We used some methods and found some clues. Please forgive us for being late, Master. In just a few sentences, he left behind all the things that happened in the middle of the story. But Chu Luiyue knew that they must have spent a lot of effort to find her so quickly. She nodded slightly and said, I'm fine. It's good that you're safe. Yi looked around. Your Highness, actually, when he had just arrived, he had already noticed the situation around him. Master was here, but His Highness wasn't. And there were many more people beside Master. Chang Wanzhou was among them. In addition, there was a large group of demonic beasts with strong auras. The scene was a little chaotic. Even someone as intelligent as him was momentarily unable to understand what had happened. Chu Luiyue explained, he went to the Red Moon Desert and will rush back soon. As for these people, they are all from outside the Divine Ruins world. These demonic beasts were raised here by the Black Demon Cave. Now that the Black Demon Cave has been destroyed, I wanted to let them go, but they wanted to follow me, so I decided to bring them back to Peach Blossom Dock. Everyone, bringing so many divine beasts back for fun. Listen. Is this something a human would say? A rare trace of surprise flashed across Xin Yi's usually indifferent and calm face. Lin Qifei, who was at the side, could not help but ask in shock, the Black Demon Cave has been destroyed. How could so many things happen in such a short period of time? Chu Luiyue chuckled. It's a long story. Let's go back and talk about it. Do you know where this is? Will it be troublesome to return to Peach Blossom Cove from here? Xin Yi replied. Master, this is Wanfeng Ridge. It's not very famous and is just a small place. There's a long river outside and it's very secluded. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. She had never heard of this place before. The Divine Ruins world was vast, so it was impossible for her to know everything. After all, the Black Demon Cave had carefully selected this area, so it was naturally more remote and difficult to find. Chu Luiyue smiled. In that case, it must have been hard for you to find this place so quickly. Xin Yi cupped his fists. After you and His Highness left, the gate realm was sealed. The two of us couldn't follow you. It's all thanks to fourth young Master Lin that we were able to find this place. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes and looked at Lin Qifei in surprise. Oh. Xin Yi's words proved that Lin Qifei had really helped. Qifei, you know this place. Lin Qifei shook his head. Lord Xin Yi is too kind. Actually, this matter is mainly due to Lord Xin Yi's efforts. I merely constructed this transportation formation. Chu Luiyue raised her brows. With Xin Yi's ability, constructing a transportation formation was not difficult. In the end, he had asked Lin Qifei to do it. As if seeing her confusion, Xin Yi explained. Your appearance here was deduced by fourth young Master Lin based on the changes in power of the Xian formation above the gate realm. I merely lent him a hand. This time, Chu Luiyue was truly shocked. Lin Qifei actually had such shocking abilities. This place is indeed some distance from the Peach Blossom Cove. Xin Yi added. Chu Luiyue understood. To construct a transportation formation in an unfamiliar place, a mystic master had to know the exact location and personally do it. This was probably why Xin Yi had asked Lin Qifei to construct the transportation formation. With Lin Qifei's current strength, it might not be a problem for him to construct a small transportation formation on his own. But to construct a complete and grand transportation formation, he still needed external help. At that time, Xin Yi had acted. But in the end, the main credit for this matter still fell on Lin Qifei's shoulders. She looked at Lin Qifei and said sincerely, Xin Yi is right. Xin Yi is right. This merit is indeed yours. Qifei, you really didn't disappoint me. There were probably only a few people in the entire Divine Ruins who had such ability. Lin Qifei raised his head and looked at her with bright eyes and undisguised respect and admiration on his face. He also revealed a faint smile. His figure was thin, and his temperament was like bamboo. His distant eyes were always calm and unperturbed. This smile instantly brightened his complexion. It was like a cool breeze brushing through a bamboo forest, pure and elegant. I can't repay the favor of saving my life. Besides, Moreover, from the very beginning, she had appreciated him very much. This kind of trust and admiration was hard to find in this lifetime. Lin Qifei cupped his fists. It is Qifei's honor to be of service to Master. Chu Luiyue was also very happy. Since you're all here, let's return to the Peach Blossom Cove first. This would save them a lot of effort in finding the way. Yes. Cini nodded. Shortly after, his gaze turned and landed on Chang Wanzhou. His eyes flickered, seemingly a little surprised. Exalted Goddess. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2036. If she remembered correctly, Chang Wanzhou had always been outside the Divine Ruins world. How did he break through to the Exalted God realm? Logically speaking, it shouldn't be. Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips slightly and glanced at Xin Yi without saying anything. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Yes, I'm also quite surprised. I didn't expect little Zhou to break through to the Exalted God realm in such a short time. His aura was hidden very well. If he hadn't shown his true realm in the fight with Mo Shiqian, Chu Luiyue would probably still think that he was at the peak of the 9th stage. However, little Zhou is extremely talented and has a lot of opportunities. It's expected that he can do this. Chu Luiyue said softly. Actually, she knew where Xin Yi's doubts came from. She had the same curiosity in her heart. However, she knew very well that Chang Wanzhou's body was indeed different from others. There was a terrifying power sealed in his body. Previously, she had only helped to release a small portion of it, and his strength had increased greatly. He was probably able to break through to the Exalted God realm because of this. When she had time after returning, she would have to ask in detail. Cini nodded and didn't ask further. Master's words make sense. Let's go back now. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. These people were still fine, but these magical beasts, there were indeed too many of them. There were at least 400 to 500 of them now. A third of them were divine beasts. Their auras were astonishing. As if seeing her worry, Cini said, Master, don't worry. Although this teleportation array was just created by the two of us, it's extremely stable. It shouldn't be a problem to send everyone back. Hearing this, Chu Luiyue was relieved. Okay. Everyone, including the magical beasts, stepped into the teleportation array one after another. Just as Cini said, although this teleportation array was new, it was very stable. It was still stable even after carrying so many people and magical beasts. In the dark space, a few pearls floated quietly, scattering a faint glow. Chu Luiyue looked at Cini thoughtfully. Sensing her gaze, Cini also looked over. Is there anything Master wants to ask? Chu Luiyue nodded and spoke with some hesitation. Cini, I remember that you are most proficient in Chimenduanjia, formations, and mechanisms. When did you have such a deep understanding of profound formations? This was not a thing. Cini smiled calmly. That usually indifferent and calm face, because of this smile, became a bit more lively. Master, Cini is also a cultivator. He wasn't lying when he said he was good at it. But he didn't say that he wasn't good at anything else. He had followed Chu Luiyue for many years, so at this moment, Chu Luiyue understood his meaning with just a look and a sentence. She couldn't help but be stunned. Cini wasn't wrong. Thinking about it carefully, wasn't 13 taught by him? The other members of the 13U Guard were also exceptionally respectful towards Cini. In this world where the strong were revered, they definitely wouldn't respect Cini so much just because of seniority. He could only be strong enough. Chu Luiyue stroked her chin. She had always thought that she knew Cini well enough, but now, what she saw was perhaps only the tip of the iceberg. However, Tsinyi's loyalty to her was indisputable. She smiled in relief, her eyes bright. That's true. Then let's spar another day. Tsinyi nodded. Tsinyi awaits master's instructions. Peach Blossom Cove. After a heavy snowfall, the entire Peach Blossom Cove was covered in silver. However, the peach blossoms outside the city were in full bloom. The pinkish-white petals complemented the snow, making it look like a painting. Manor, backyard. Sanson was sitting in the room, holding a brush in one hand and checking an account book in front of him. There was a happy smile on his chubby cheeks, and his pair of small eyes had already narrowed into slits in joy. Anyone could see his joy and excitement at this moment. When 13 entered, he happened to see this scene. Third brother, why are you so happy? Actually, when he saw the account book in Sanson's hand, 13 had already guessed why he was so happy, but he still asked symbolically. When Sanson heard his voice, he chuckled without even looking up. Oh, 13 is here. Quick, take a seat. Your third brother, I am settling accounts. As he spoke, he sighed with emotion. TSK, these aristocratic families and sects are indeed generous. Just the profits of these few days have already surpassed the profits of the past 3 months. Without the oppression of the Black Sword sect, the profits they were making were truly impressive. Although Master had only chosen a few families, they had all come with the intention of befriending them. In addition, the quality of the medicinal herbs and pills in Peach Blossom Cove were indeed excellent, so these people were very generous. Sanson had been so busy recently that his feet barely touched the ground, but he didn't feel tired at all with this account book in hand. 13 asked curiously. Third brother doesn't use an abacus. The abacus is too slow. Sanson finally retracted his gaze and chuckled. Little 13, don't you know that when your third brother looks at the account book, the bigger the account book, the less I like to use an abacus? 13 really didn't know. Although he had followed Master for a long time, he had spent most of his time with Tsinyi and the others. Among the 13 guards, only Sanson had a special fondness for things like calculating accounts and making money. He didn't have much time and opportunities to spend with 13. Moreover, 13 was young in the past, so Sanson wouldn't mention these things in front of him. As for the others, he was simply too lazy to mention them. Therefore, 13 only knew about this matter when he heard it from his own mouth. Third brother's calculations are that good? 13 quickly reacted and revealed a look of admiration. Sanson enjoyed this look very much. Haha. Actually, it's not that good. This thing is innate. He gently stroked the account book in his hand and said with a smile. Little 13, with these transactions, our residents will be able to gain a firm foothold in the world of God in the future. If you want anything in the future, just ask third brother. Sanson said these words in a rich and imposing manner. But this was also because he had the confidence. The battle between Chu Luiyue and Yi Wentao could be considered as killing the chicken to warn the monkey, letting everyone know that the residence in the Peach Blossom Dock was not to be trifled with. And these business transactions were also beneficial for them to build a good relationship with the various aristocratic families. More friends meant more paths. Who knew how many people wanted to climb up to the residence? After all, although the residence had just been established, they had many backers behind them. In the current world of God, who would want to provoke them? And to support the establishment and development of such a large aristocratic family, not only did they need enough experts, they also needed enough resources. Sanson had also saved some money previously, but he didn't expect Master to cause such a big commotion. Now that there were so many people in the Peach Blossom Dock, the expenses in all aspects were not small. But fortunately, the future was bright. Hey, 13, why did you think of looking for third brother today? Only then did 13 react. Oh, right. I'm here to report to third brother that master and the others are back. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2037. Sanson was delighted. Why didn't you say so earlier? He quickly put away the account book in his hand and was about to go out to welcome them. 13 quickly said, Hey. Third brother, wait. Master and the others are at the city gate now. He said there's no need to welcome them. He only asked third brother to arrange some accommodations and find a few suitable mountains. Accommodations? Find mountains? Sanson was stunned. What are they for? 13 scratched his head. I'm not too sure. I only heard that Master brought some people and magical beasts back. What? Sanson didn't expect to get this answer. The corner of his mouth twitched. Some time ago, Big Brother said that there was a problem in the Gate Realm, so Master and His Highness went to take a look. However, something unexpected happened, and the two of them disappeared together. For this reason, the eldest brother took Lin Jifei to look for him. Now that they heard that Master was back, they were naturally happy. But why did he bring people and magical beasts back? He thought for a moment and said, I see. I'll send someone to arrange it. With that, he walked outside. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly thought of something and turned back. That's not right. If the people and magical beasts came together, those magical beasts should be the contracted magical beasts of the human race. There shouldn't be any extra places. Why did Master mean that the people and magical beasts were separated? 13 was confused. I don't know about this. He didn't have time to check it out. He only heard the news and quickly came to find Sanson. After all, Master and Big Brother weren't here. Sanson was the most senior in the 13 guards. And he was familiar enough with this place. He was the most suitable person for this kind of thing. Sanson thought for a moment. Forget it. It's not a big deal. Peach Blossom Cove is so big. It's easy to find a few empty places. Before he could finish his sentence, a loud noise suddenly came from outside. Sanson looked outside curiously. What's going on? Swoosh. There was a sound of something breaking through the air. Sanson's heart skipped a beat. He saw something flying toward him. He immediately mobilized the power in his body and was about to attack. Sanson, don't move. A clear and familiar voice. Master. Sanson quickly restrained his aura when he heard this voice. The next moment, that thing pounced over. Sanson was thrown into his arms. He staggered and almost fell down. He hurriedly held onto the door beside him and barely managed to stand still. Only then did he take the time to look down, only to see that there was actually one hanging in front of him, Thunder Tigan. This Thunder Tigan was biting the clothes in front of his chest. Sanson's eyes widened. This, hula, the sound of wings flapping could be heard. Sanson subconsciously looked up and saw a black gold divine vulture charging over. This little trick, however, Sanson did not know what Dumpling was thinking at this time. It was not a big deal, so he was not really angry. Dumpling was so cute. He felt sorry for her. How could he bear to say anything harsh? Oh, our Dumpling is the best. No need to apologize, no need to apologize. Brother Sanson just needs to wash his hands. As long as Dumpling is happy. Dumpling immediately stood up, her big eyes sparkling. I know Brother Sanson is the best. Her words made Sanson so happy that she didn't notice the slyness in Tuanzi's eyes. Chu Lue sighed in his heart. Since some people wanted to die, they could not blame her for not helping them. Shirsan, help your third brother take down the little thing. Chu Lue gave Shirsan a signal. San immediately reacted and went forward to pick up the little red cloud leopard. Sansan, you go and clean it up first. Chu Luiyue said. Sansan came back to his senses and responded. Just as he was about to leave, he pointed at those few and said, "These are all brought back by Master this time." Chu Luiyue looked at him with sympathy. No. More than this. Sansan suddenly felt a strong sense of uneasiness. More than this. Then how many? Suddenly, his eyes narrowed and he gasped. What are these? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2038. A dark mass had appeared behind Chu Luiyue at some point in time. Countless magical beasts had gathered together, and all of them were looking in this direction. Curiosity, surprise, joy, excitement, perhaps because of Dumpling's presence, they didn't dare to get too close. They were still huddled together at the back. But it wasn't hard to see that there were indeed a lot of them. Sansan's mouth twitched. Master, what did you do this time? Why did you bring back so many fiends? And many of them seemed to be divine beasts. Chu Luiyue turned around and raised her voice. What's going on? Didn't I tell you to wait outside? Hearing her words, the fiends immediately took a step back obediently. But after spending some time together, they had a good understanding of Chu Luiyue and knew that she wasn't really angry. In addition, due to various reasons, they had a natural affinity with Chu Luiyue. Even after hearing her reprimand them, they were still happy and wanted to lean forward. Hence, although the fiends quietened down, they still gathered together and refused to leave. Master, those people have been arranged. At this moment, Tsini walked over. Chu Luiyue nodded. That's good. There were only a few dozen people in total. There were many empty residences in Peach Blossom Cove, so she could just bring them there. Moreover, they were all quite talented and would be able to adapt quickly after coming here. There was no need to worry too much. The key was, these fiends. Big brother. When Sansan saw Tsini, his eyes welled up and he felt wronged. Tsini's gaze turned slightly as he glanced at him indifferently. You're not allowed to take half a step closer until you're done bathing. Sansan was speechless. Big brother. You're my big brother. Your third brother is being bullied. Not only are you not concerned, but you're also so disdainful. As if sensing Sansan's resentful gaze, Tsini glanced at him nobly and narrowed his eyes slightly. Make a new copy of the account book. Master still has to look at it in the future. Sansan's hands trembled slightly as he held the account book. He finally couldn't help but shout. My hands are clean. Tsini's expression was calm. Is that so? Sansan, 13 whispered, third brother, why don't you go first? Otherwise, I won't be able to get past big brother alone. Sansan was extremely indignant. The world is so big, but there is no place for me, Sansan. Around the corner, Shifang, who had rushed over when he heard the news, looked delighted. Hey, third brother, you can come to my place. I've just planted some vegetables recently, and they need some fertilizer. Scram. Sansan took a deep breath, then used its fastest speed to turn around and leave. Shifang sighed regretfully. The scarlet cloud leopard is a divine beast. This fertilizer is very precious. I don't know how many times I woke up and slept. I'm splitting open. 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Family Wei's desire to live is quite strong. In comparison, being open and fair was indeed the best way. No matter how unwilling they were, they could only do so. So this time, I'm going to go there myself. Taizu said seriously. Chu Luiyue looked up. She rarely saw Taizu with such an expression on his face. After all, it was Tang Ku's. Taizu was a refiner. Naturally, he couldn't resist such a temptation. But won't this trip be too dangerous? Chu Luiyue said thoughtfully. The benefits are tempting. It's hard to guarantee that no one will have any evil ideas, it's inevitable. But how can the path of cultivation always be smooth? Taizu laughed. He was quite open-minded. Girl, you know that I've been in the realm of refiner for too long, but that's because you've been sleeping. No matter what the reason is, this is the reality. Taizu shook his head and interrupted her. Now that you're the lord of the Peach Blossom Dock, you can take charge of things on your own. I can rest assured. This time, I really want to go and have a look. Chu Luiyue sighed softly. In fact, she knew what Taizu was thinking. He had been sleeping for 1,000 years. During that long time, only a wisp of his soul was waiting alone. Now that he had finally woken up, he naturally wanted to go to a higher level. Besides, how proud was Taizu back then? Tang Ku's tomb was too tempting for him. Why don't I go with you? The great ancestor laughed, but he refused. Girl, you just came back. Now is the time for you to rest. How can you run around? Besides, there are a lot of things in the Peach Blossom Dock that you need to deal with. He patted Chu Luiyue's arm. Don't worry. Besides me, there are a few people who will go with me this time. Chu Luiyue knew that those who would go with him would be the refiners who had a close relationship with Taizu. She hesitated for a moment and finally nodded. When will you leave? Tomorrow. Chu Luiyue was not surprised. It would take some time to go from the Peach Blossom Dock to the Chingu Slope. It was just right to leave tomorrow. Then please be careful. Chu Luiyue said seriously. Taizu looked at her and couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Taizu of your family has also traveled in the world of divine ruins. Girl, don't worry. He repeatedly reminded her like he was a child. By the way, Chu Ning and Shengguan, you should be here in a while. When they came to the Peach Blossom Dock previously, the two of them happened to be at the critical point of breaking through, so they didn't bring them along. Chu Luiyue knew about this. She nodded slightly. The arrival of those people and magical beasts really made the Peach Blossom Dock lively. Especially those magical beasts. Because of the chaotic environment in the Peach Blossom Dock in the past, there were few magical beasts, and even fewer divine beasts. Now that Chu Luiyue suddenly brought back a large group of them, it naturally attracted the attention of the entire city. According to Chu Luiyue's instructions, Cini specially chose a mountain area for them and ordered that no one was to come near and disturb them for a month. After all, they had to recuperate. Chu Luiyue's idea was simple. Once they had all recovered, they would open the mountain area to the public. At that time, if there were cultivators who wanted to contract magical beasts, they could try. If they really had the ability, these magical beasts would naturally be willing to submit. After the crowd heard Chu Luiyue's words, they suppressed the excitement in their hearts and went back to cultivate on their own. In short, the entire Peach Blossom Dock's cultivation atmosphere was in full swing. In the evening, Chu Luiyue once again came to the Gate Realm. Wu Yao and Yu Jiu were guarding here. Ever since the previous incident, Cini had changed people again. Now, only the 13 Yu guard could take care of this place. The two of them already knew that Chu Luiyue and the others had returned, but they didn't expect her to come here so soon after her return. Master. The two of them looked at each other worriedly. They didn't want the same thing to happen a second time. Chu Luiyue waved her hand. I'm just here to take a look. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chu Luiyue turned back and glanced at the gate realm. The silhouette above had long since disappeared. She pursed her lips and turned to leave. Chu Luiyue returned to the Yu residence and went straight to her room. She sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and began to cultivate. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth continuously flowed into her body. With her current physique and level, she didn't need to spend too much effort on it. Her body would devour the energy and convert it for her own use. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, dusk covered the sky. There was no moon tonight. A few snowflakes were carried into the room by the cold wind. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. There was no light in the room, and it was dark. However, her eyes were exceptionally bright, like stars in the dark night, shining brightly. At this moment, her brows were slightly furrowed, as if she was worried about something. After a while, she stood up and walked to the window. She was about to close the window, but the cold wind blew in her face, instantly waking her up. She held the windowsill with one hand and stood silently. The scene that she saw in the gate realm during the day was still deeply engraved in her mind. No matter what, it couldn't be erased. Little boat. She suddenly spoke softly. The surroundings were silent. After a while, a figure quietly appeared in the courtyard. The figure was thin, and his hemp clothes were loose. The faint light reflected from the snow fell on his face, and his facial features could be vaguely seen. It was Chang Wanzhou. He had returned to the Yu residence with Chu Luiyue. However, he didn't like crowds, so after he came, he hid himself. Although Chu Luiyue had arranged a place for him to stay, she knew that he should be nearby. As expected, he came out after she shouted, "Little boat, come in and talk." After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, she closed the window, walked over to light the room, and then opened the door. Chang Wanzhou walked through the thick snow in the courtyard, but did not leave any trace. Now that he was a great god, it was naturally not difficult for him. He walked into the room, and Chu Luiyue was already sitting at the table. "Master." He curtsied. Chu Luiyue didn't ask him to get up as usual. Instead, she poured herself a cup of tea. The tea was cold. "Master, I'll get you a new pot." Chang Wanzhou lowered his head slightly. Even if he didn't look up, he knew what was going on. He had always been very alert. "No need." Chu Luiyue took the teacup in her hand and slowly rubbed it twice. "I don't want to drink it anyway." Chang Wanzhou responded and didn't say anything else. The room was completely silent. After a while, Chu Luiyue asked, "Little boat, when did you become a great god?" Chang Wanzhou said, "Not long ago." "Which day exactly?" 31 days ago." 31 days. After such a long time, you didn't think of coming to the realm of divine ruins to look for me?" Chu Luiyue looked at him and asked calmly. Chang Wanzhou paused. "I did. But it's very troublesome for ordinary people to enter the realm of divine ruins. I heard that after passing the trial in Cloud State City, I could enter the realm of divine ruins. That's why I went there. I didn't expect to meet you and your highness there. Have you been sleeping all this time?" "Yes. When I woke up, I found that I had become a great god. Although it was a long time, it was a good thing to be able to become a great god after waking up." Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. "So, you don't know how you became a great god?" "I don't know." Chu Luiyue laughed. "Then you're very lucky." Then, she was silent for a while and didn't say anything else. Chang Wanzhou finally couldn't help but look at her. "Master, you've..." Bang. Chu Luiyue put down the teacup with a sound that was neither loud nor soft. Chang Wanzhou's heart also skipped a beat. Chu Luiyue inched closer, stared into Chang Wanzhou's eyes, and enunciated every word clearly. I remember that you said you went to the Tianling imperial capital to look for an old friend. So, have you found that person? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2041. There was silence in the room. Chang Wanzhou looked up and met a pair of dark and bright eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything. His heart was beating violently, as if it was being gripped tightly by something. Cold air spread and engulfed his entire body. A moment later, he heard his own voice. Not yet. Chu Luiyue was still staring at him. Really? Really? If that's the case, why don't you look for that person instead of following me? Master once said that you would help me find her. Anne. Chang Wanzhou took a deep breath. I can feel that she's in the realm of God. Chu Luiyue laughed. So, you want me to help you find her? Yes. Chu Luiyue stepped back a little. The oppressive aura was instantly reduced by a lot. She stood up and looked down at Chang Wanzhou in front of her. Little Wanzhou. Let me ask you again, how did you break through to the exalted God level? Chang Wanzhou was silent for a long time and finally said. I seem to have been to the realm of God a long time ago. In my memory, it was also at that time that I broke through to the exalted God level. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered slightly. A long time ago. When was that? Chang Wanzhou shook his head. I really don't know. Give me your hand. Upon hearing that, Chang Wanzhou didn't hesitate and directly reached his wrist over. Chu Luiyue put 2 fingers on his wrist and injected a stream of force to check the condition of his body. Sure enough, the cold air in his body had dissipated a little. The cold air contained an extremely shocking power. It was also because of this that when he integrated all this power into his own cultivation, he could make rapid progress. If all the cold air in his body was dissipated, it would be terrifying. Chu Luiyue retracted her hand. You can leave first. Chang Wanzhou hesitated for a moment. Master's tea, Chu Luiyue smiled. Don't worry about these small things. I'm going to rest soon. Chang Wanzhou bowed and left. When he left, he even closed the door carefully. Chu Luiyue's fingers tapped on the table. She had a vague guess in her heart, but she wasn't sure, so she called Chang Wanzhou to ask him. Chu Luiyue knew Chang Wanzhou quite well, and he shouldn't have lied just now. But he did not seem to know much about his body. Perhaps there were some things he did not dare to say. With a thought, the shield appeared in front of Chu Luiyue's to appear. She brushed her hand lightly over it. She had never seen the secret text engraved on it before, nor did she recognize it. But why did she still have that notebooks? She of course. If he had caught Emo Shiqian, he should have asked him. Yi Wentao had been instigated and incited by him, which was why he had set his mind on the armillary shield. He should be the one who understood this the most. And the music score, Emo Shiqian obviously valued that music score the most. Otherwise, he would not have spent so much effort to snatch it from her. According to what that person said, the music score was divided into 3 parts. Now that she had 2 parts, there was only one left. It was a pity that after such a long time, she had gone to many places, but she still did not find any relevant clues. The world of divine ruins was so big that it was like looking for a needle in a haystack to find something. Just as Chu Luiyue was deep in thought, a fluctuation suddenly came from behind her. She was about to move when she smelled a familiar cold fragrance. It's so late. You're still awake. A low and pleasant voice sounded. Chu Luiyue turned around. It was Rongxiu. Her lips curved. You came back so quickly. Rongxiu walked over, and his gaze lightly swept across the armillary shield in front of her. He then went over to hold her hand and leaned over to kiss it. Knowing that you, was waiting, I naturally came back as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue glared at him angrily and looked him up and down. How was this trip? Are you hurt? Rong Xiao smiled. I'm not hurt, but I miss you, very much. I feel that something is missing. Chu Luiyue leaned forward with a faint smile, and her warm breath sprinkled on him. It was ambiguous. My husband has been running around. You should serve you well. Rong Xiao's eyes darkened and he held her slender waist with one hand. Chu Luiyue's eyes moved. My husband has worked so hard. You must have a good rest today. Then I won't disturb you. After saying that, she turned around and was about to slip away. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows and pulled her back with a faint smile. You will know soon whether your husband is tired or not. After saying that, he carried her to the bed. Sensing the dangerous aura on him, Chu Luiyue hurriedly said that I still have something to ask. Before she could finish speaking, her back had landed on the soft brocade quilt. Rong Xiao's slender fingers gently took off the hairpin on her head. Her long, silk-like hair fell on his hand. What's the matter? You can ask tomorrow. Rong Xiao's voice was very low, with a trace of suppressed hoarseness. Seeing that he was about to come over, Chu Luiyue hurriedly asked, How is Fifth Elder? Rong Xiao paused in his actions. He looked like he was careless, but in actual fact, his actions were very light. I sent Fifth Elder out of the Red Moon Desert and didn't go in with him. Wei Yu has arrived. Fifth Elder insisted on going back by himself, so I didn't insist. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. In fact, this was also within her expectations. Fifth Elder seemed to be very reluctant to let them go now. This time, he was forced to let Rong Xiao send him off. I don't know what's going on with Wei Yu. Even they are so afraid of her, Chu Luiyue murmured unconsciously. The rest of the words were quickly swallowed up, leaving only a vague murmur. After a long time, she heard Rong Xiao's deep and hoarse laughter faintly. What do you want to know? I will help you find out. What do you want to get? I will help you get it. But everything can wait until tomorrow. Besides, you can't take these for free. Chu Luiyue originally had a lot on her mind, but after being stirred up by Rong Xiao, she quickly threw those things to the back of her mind. It wasn't until the next day that her waist and legs were sore that she barely pulled her mind back. But at this time, her mood was much better than before. There were many things that had to be done slowly. Even if she was anxious now, there was still no way to solve those problems immediately. Instead, it was better to wait and see, and be prepared. Looking at it now, there was a lot of fog in front of her, but one day, the truth would come to light. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue snuggled into Rong Xiao's arms again. Rong Xiao originally closed his eyes, but when he noticed her movements, he opened his eyes and looked over. His eyes were deep. Chu Luiyue hurriedly retreated again. She almost forgot that this man couldn't be provoked early in the morning. Rong Xiao couldn't help but laugh. He stopped teasing her and changed the topic. I heard that Shengwan Qian was taken to Qinggu Slope by them. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2042. Speaking of this, Chu Luiyue's expression became slightly restrained. Yes. This time, Taizu wanted to keep a low profile, so he had already said that there was no need to send him off and left with the others. Tang costume is still very attractive to Taizu. No, it should be said that it was the same for all artificers. In the entire Divine Ruins world, after Tang Ku and Mr. Su, no one else had successfully refined a sacred artifact. Countless people had racked their brains for this, but they had never been able to break through that layer of shackles. Now that the opportunity had come, perhaps Tang Ku's tomb contained the opportunity and secret to refining a sacred artifact. Who wouldn't be tempted? Suddenly, Chu Luiyue thought of something and looked at Rongxiu. I almost forgot that Rongxiu is also a refiner. Moreover, it was the kind with extremely strong talent and strength. Doesn't he have any thoughts? Then, do you plan to go too? Chu Luiyue asked. Rongxiu shook his head with an indifferent expression. No, I want you to go. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Why? Although she was also a refiner, she wasn't particularly interested in this aspect. In addition, too many things had happened recently, so she didn't pay attention to this aspect. She didn't expect that Rongxiu would take the initiative to ask her to go to Tang Ku's tomb. She pondered for a moment and said, my strength and talent as a refiner are not as good as yours. Even if I want to go, you should be more suitable, right? If Rongxiu went, she might have some confidence. Needless to say, those who went to the Qingdu slope this time would be the top refiners in the world. Even Taizu said that they might not be able to win, let alone her. The benefits were indeed tempting, but from the beginning, she didn't want to get involved in this mess. Rongxiu's thin scarlet lips curled slightly, revealing a meaningful smile. No, no one is more suitable than you. Chu Luiyue looked at him blankly. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows. Don't forget that you have 3 saint artifacts. Moreover, they were all made by Mr. Su. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. He seemed to have understood something, but also seemed to have not. You're saying, maybe we can open Tang Ku's tomb with these sacred artifacts? But that's Tang Ku's tomb, not. Suddenly, her voice paused, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Rongxiu smiled. Back then, Tang Ku was at his peak. Although he didn't win that battle, he didn't lose either. It didn't affect his reputation much. However, after that battle, Mr. Su disappeared, and not long after, Tang Ku also disappeared without a trace. You mean, Tang Ku's disappearance at that time may have something to do with Mr. Su? It's just a guess. But Mr. Su is Tang Ku's only opponent, and you have 3 of Mr. Su's sacred weapons. You might have a chance to find something. Rongxiu's words made Chu Luiyue ponder. She had to admit that these words did make some sense. This guess was not impossible. She didn't think much of it at first, but after hearing Rongxiu's words, she was really moved. After all, it was Tang Ku's tomb. Also, there's something you may not know. Rongxiu paused. Back then, Tang Ku and Mr. Su fought at Peach Blossom Dock. Really? Chu Luiyue was suddenly energized. She looked at him in surprise and disbelief. Very few people know about this because the place where they agreed to fight was very hidden. Other than the 2 of them, no one else knows about it. But at that time, a few top experts noticed that there was movement in Peach Blossom Dock, and they guessed. After that battle, the cultivation environment in Peach Blossom Dock changed a lot, so they confirmed their guesses. But at that time, Tang Ku was very famous. Everyone was worried that they would offend him if they leaked the news, so they tacitly kept it a secret. Over the years, some families and clans have been trying to make a move on Peach Blossom Dock, partly because of this. But since they didn't say anything, outsiders didn't know. After all, Peach Blossom Dock itself was very tempting. No wonder, Chu Luiyue looked at the dot diagram in understanding. If that's the case, could the celestial shield have something to do with those 2 people? After a long while, she finally said, then, let's go and take a look. Chu Luiyue made up her mind to go, but she was not in a hurry. For the next 3 days, she recuperated in her room and adjusted herself to the best state. After she dealt with all the things in Peach Blossom Dock, she decided to go. Rong Xiao naturally went with her. Yan Qing and Chang Wanzhou went with them. Yan Qing was Rong Xiao's confidant, so there was no problem with her going. The problem was Chang Wanzhou. Master, do you have other plans for bringing Chang Wanzhou with you? In the room, Chu Luiyue sat at the head of the table with an account book in front of her. The faint smell of ink wafted over. It was the new account book that Sanson had painstakingly written. She scanned it once and memorized everything clearly in her heart. Sanson was indeed good at calculating and making money. The current income was enough to support the entire Peach Blossom dock, and there would even be a surplus. She nodded in satisfaction, closed the account book, and looked at Sunyi in front of her. Actually, it's not that complicated. Although little Zhou has just become a high god, he is very powerful. You should be able to see that. Besides, he has been following me all this time, and he has done well in all aspects. Sunyi cupped his fists. Since Master has already thought about it, I will naturally comply. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment and said, I know. I know. Originally, you thought that I would send you with me. However, I will probably spend a lot of time on this trip. Peach Blossom Dock cannot be left unattended. After I leave, I will leave everything here to you. Sunyi's expression became serious. Don't worry, Master. I will do my best. Chu Luiyue was naturally not worried about Sunyi. Imperial Father and Father might be coming soon. Also, it's time to gather the remaining people of the 13U. It's not appropriate for them to keep floating outside. At the very least, they should report their arrival first. And these people were the most suitable to be left at Sunyi. Sunyi nodded. I will not let you down. I hope that Master will return safely. Chu Luiyue's red lips curled up slightly. Of course. Qinggu Slope. In the vast and boundless wilderness, huge rocks were scattered all over the place. From afar, they looked like small mountains, tall and straight. Stone Forest. Family Way was behind this stone forest. It was rumored that this stone forest was as complicated as a maze, and it was difficult to pass through. Even the members of the Wei clan would always fly from above and would rarely pass through here. However, at this moment, many people had already gathered outside the stone forest, which had always been deserted. And all of them had powerful auras. They were all experts. Because it was rumored that Tang Costume was here. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2043. Almost all the famous blacksmiths in the Divine Ruins world had already rushed here. Today was the day that the family Wei had agreed to enter the stone forest together. Early in the morning, everyone had already gathered here, waiting for the start. I heard that Sheng Wanjing is also here. That's right, he's standing in the corner. He's one of the best blacksmiths. With him around, I'm afraid the competition this time will be very intense. Isn't this within our expectations? Other than him, there are also many blacksmiths who haven't appeared for many years. Then doesn't that mean that we don't have any hope at all? Not necessarily. Until the very last moment, no one would know who would have the last laugh in the end, right? Besides, these people are powerful, but this time, we're going to open Tang Costume. Who here can be on par with them? Since that's the case, whether we win or lose, I think luck is more important. That's true, everyone was discussing in groups of 3 to 5. Although the family Wei didn't specify the number of people allowed to participate together, most of them tacitly agreed to only select a few people to go together. There were also some who came alone. This kind of thing wasn't completely a competition of strength. No matter how many people came, it didn't mean much. It might be more convenient to travel light. Brother Shengwan, you've disappeared for such a long time. Now that you've come out, you're still the focus of everyone's attention. A few people teased him. Yes. Since we came here, those people haven't stopped talking about you. Haha. Brother Shangguan is still popular. If it wasn't for the competition this time, I'm afraid many people would want to come up and make friends with him. Shangguan Jing snorted and said indifferently, "They're not paying attention to me. They're not paying attention to me. They're paying attention to the person behind me." He was very clear about this point. Now, in the entire Divine Ruins world, who hadn't heard of the Peach Blossom Dock? The name of Shangguan Yu had already spread far and wide. She was very famous. As Yu Er's Taizu, he naturally couldn't avoid being noticed. He wasn't the only blacksmith here, and there were others whose strength was on par with him. The answer to why everyone's attention was solely on him was self-evident. That's not bad either. You, can be considered as basking in the glory of your family's Shangguan Jing did not hide the pride on his face. Of course. Their was naturally the best. Suddenly, a chill came from behind. He frowned and looked back, but everything was normal. Everyone was taken aback. "Brother Shangguan, what are you looking at?" Shangguan Jing's brows slowly relaxed, but his eyes were still cold. Nothing. Just now, he had clearly sensed a cold gaze staring at him from the dark. Right at this moment, several sounds of air being torn apart sounded out. All kinds of discussions came to a halt as everyone raised their heads and looked over. Someone from the family way. Seeing the pattern on the left chest of their clothes, Shangguan Jing immediately recognized them. Sure enough, those people crossed the stone forest and landed in front of everyone. The person at the front was a middle-aged man. He was dressed in a long robe and had an elegant demeanor. "I am the head of family Wei Zhe. Greetings, everyone." Everyone also greeted him politely. After all, this stone forest on the Qinggu slope was the territory of the family Wei, so they still had to give face. Wei Zhe chuckled and exchanged a few words with everyone. Then, he cupped his hands at Shangguan Jing and asked in surprise, Senior Shangguan, didn't Shangguan Yu and Rong Xiu come with you? Digression, 60 clock mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2044. As soon as he said that, the surroundings quietened down. Everyone turned to look at him. Shangguan Yu's name was like thunder to one's ears. Who didn't know about the things that happened in Peach Blossom Dock? Quite a few of them were filled with curiosity about this. Shangguan Jing narrowed his eyes. Wei Zhe seemed to be a little strange. Why did he ask about Yu and Rong Xiu when there were so many people? Besides, there were already enough people here and most of them were top-notch blacksmiths. It didn't seem to matter if those two people didn't come, right? Shangguan Jing's mind raced, but he didn't show it on his face. He just laughed. Thank you for your concern, Family Wei. It's just that Peach Blossom Dock has been busy recently and Yu has a lot of things to deal with. Therefore, she can't get away for the time being. Rong Xiu has always liked to accompany her. So, everyone had mixed feelings. Busy with things, a lot of things to deal with, what else could it be? Naturally, it was because they monopolized Peach Blossom Dock that they had these things to do. Wasn't it obvious that they were here to show off? Were they afraid that others didn't know that they were the new owners of Peach Blossom Dock? Every word he said revealed an undisguised sense of pride. The key point was that it was fine if he said this, but he actually helped those two show off their affection. Who in the Divine Ruins world hadn't heard of Rong Xiu's fierce name? In Shangguan Jing's mouth, he became a good man who protected his wife at home. What was this? Wei Zhe choked and scolded in his heart. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. With just a few words, it made everyone lose their interest and choke them until they couldn't say anything. Since he had said so, how could others continue? Wei Zai's lips moved and he laughed. Ha, I see. Senior Shangguan, don't misunderstand. I've heard of your name for a long time and want to meet these two. Let's not talk about Rongxiu first. You, is now the owner of you, and will have to interact with all of you in the future. If the family Wei wants to meet her, there will naturally be a chance. Shangguan Jing interrupted him with a smile. Wei Zai's chest felt stuffy. What he meant was that Chu Luyue would be on the same level as these family heads in the future, and not just anyone could meet her. Senior Shangguan Jing. Shangguan Jing's seniority here was very high, so even Wei Zai had to be polite to him. After exchanging blows, Wei Zai didn't manage to get the answer he wanted to ask. Thus, he didn't continue. Instead, he turned to the crowd and changed the topic. We're all smart people, so let's not beat around the bush. Today, everyone is here for Senior Tang Ku's tomb. Senior Tang Ku was a peerless top-notch weapon refiner. Ever since he went missing, there had been no news of him. Now, he had finally found his tomb. Chapter 2045. Shangguan Jing took a closer look at it. The bronze doorknob was exquisitely crafted and thick. Although there was a layer of bronze rust on it, one could vaguely see that it used to be engraved with fine lines. How could there be such a door knocker on a perfectly good piece of rock? Wei Zai pointed at the bronze doorknob and said, "You've all seen it. As you can see, this stone is quite different from the other stones in the stone forest. We think it's very likely that it's a door. It's very likely that it's the door to Tang Ku's tomb." There was a commotion in the crowd. Obviously, Wei Zai's words had shaken them. This guess was not impossible. Although this blood-red boulder looked very strange and didn't look like a door, the bronze doorknob on it was even stranger. It made people think more about it. Wei Clan's head, "May I ask if you've already attempted to enter?" Someone asked. Wei Zai's face darkened and he nodded. "To be honest, we've tried many methods, but we still can't open it. Moreover, there's a layer of extremely powerful restriction on the bronze doorknob. Once we get close to it, it will trigger a terrifying attack. Because of this, family Wei suffered a great loss. They had no experience at that time. How could they have known that a small doorknob would be so dangerous?" Many people looked at each other when they heard what he said. It's just a doorknob. How could it be so dangerous? At least for now, there was nothing special about it. There was not even the slightest fluctuation on it. Hearing this, Wei Zai curled the corners of his mouth without a smile. That's all I, Wei Zai, have to say. If anyone doesn't believe me, you can come forward and verify it yourself. After saying that, he walked to the side and gave up his position. It seemed that he was really waiting for someone to go over and try it himself. After a short period of silence, a man finally came forward. Ha! Family Wei's words really make people curious. This old man wants to see just how powerful this thing is. This was an old man with a face full of vicissitudes. However, his eyes were extremely bright, flickering with a shrewd and powerful light. Shangguan Jing did not know this person, but judging from the aura around him, he should be a weapon-refining venerable. Wei Zai chuckled. Please. The crowd's gazes all landed on the old man. He headed towards the blood-red boulder. After taking a step forward, he finally stopped. They were already so close, but nothing happened. He chuckled. Could it be that this old man and Senior Tang Ku are fated? As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and pulled the bronze door knocker. Bang! A terrifying explosion suddenly rang out. At the same time, a red flame appeared out of nowhere and wrapped around the old man's body. Ah! There was a short scream of fear, but it quickly stopped. The old man's body began to disappear under the flames at a speed visible to the naked eye. Before anyone could react, the ball of flame disappeared without a trace. As for the old man, he had completely died. Other than a few drops of blood on the ground, there was no trace of him at all. There was still a burning smell in the air, and it was very pungent. Wei Zhe sneered in his heart and quickly scanned the surroundings. Almost everyone was deeply shocked by this scene and could not recover for a long time. A weapon refining venerable, died just like that. My family Wei has suffered a lot, but none of you took it seriously before. Wei Zhe shook his head, and there was a hint of regret and pain on his face. Now, do you believe what I said just now? Dead silence. Everyone looked at the bronze door knocker again. Their eyes had changed from the initial curiosity and excitement to deep suspicion and shock. What is this? At the same time, the void outside the stone forest fluctuated. Then, a red scroll appeared. A few figures walked out of it. It was Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu's group. Chu Luiyue raised her wrist, and the scroll quickly flew back into her hand. This flowing cloud flying map is really useful. She smiled and raised her eyebrows. Although they set off a few days later, their speed was extremely fast. Rong Xiu surveyed the surroundings and said, "You're right. They should have already gone in. But it seems that it hasn't been long." Chu Luiyue looked at it seriously and then nodded slightly. She also sensed that there seemed to be Taizu's aura here. Tang's tomb is inside. She put away the flowing cloud flying map and looked at the stone forest in front of her. There was no barrier outside, and it seemed that one could enter at will. This is family Wei's territory, and they didn't send anyone to guard it. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Rong Xiu's lips curled slightly. There is only one possibility for this. There is no need for anyone to guard this place. Even if there is someone guarding this place, it is useless and meaningless. It was very likely that Tang's tomb was hidden here, and it could be considered an extremely precious treasure land. The Wei clan wouldn't be so magnanimous as to ignore this place. Rong Xiu's words made a lot of sense. Chu Luiyue nodded. Then let's go in and take a look. With that, she walked straight forward. Just as she walked to the edge, she suddenly stopped. Rong Xiu asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Luiyue looked sideways at him. Rong Xiu, did you hear anything just now? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2046. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes. You mean, the sound that came from inside? Chu Luiyue nodded. It seemed that he heard it too. It sounded like something exploded, she murmured, but she was a little uncertain. Perhaps there were people fighting. After all, everyone who entered this stone forest was aiming for Tang's tomb. They were competitors, so it was normal for them to fight with each other. Rong Xiu glanced inside. Standing here, he could only see the huge rocks, but not the scenery inside. No one could say for sure what had happened. We'll know when we go in, Rong Xiu said. Chu Luiyue nodded. Then let's go in too. As she said that, she was about to go forward. Wait. Rong Xiu suddenly called out to her, then walked forward and held her hand. The stone forest is full of danger, and it's easy to get lost. Be careful. The warmth of the iron came from his broad and strong palm. Chu Luiyue felt a little relieved, and the corners of her lips curled up. As she said that, she moved her wrist, and Scarlet Heaven Sword appeared in her hand. This way, we should be able to find Taizu and the others faster. Scarlet Heaven's sword had inherited the soul of the Dragon Abyss sword, so it had a subtle connection with Taizu. With this, it would be easy for Chu Luiyue to find Taizu's traces. This was also a major reason why she felt calm. After that, they all stepped into the stone forest and quickly disappeared. After walking for a while, Chu Luiyue and the others noticed the problem. This chaotic stone forest is just like what the rumors say. It is as complicated as a maze. Chu Luiyue looked around and murmured. If it weren't for Scarlet Heaven's sword, they would have wasted a lot of time here. If Tangke's tomb is really here, then why did he choose this place? Chu Luiyue couldn't figure it out. Although the heaven and earth energy here was abundant, it was not the best. At the very least, it couldn't compare to the Yuntian Tower. As for the environment, there were only a few giant rocks around. Other than that, there was nothing else. He really couldn't see anything special about it. This tomb might not have been chosen by him. Rongxiu said calmly, after all, until now, no one knows how he died. Chu Luiyue blinked and nodded in agreement. That's true, when the Tang clan was exterminated, he didn't even appear. Either he was already dead at that time, or he was as good as dead. If he had calmly faced death himself, logically speaking, it would have been impossible for him to not know about the Tang clan. Thinking about it, Tangke's death was more likely to be an accident. Bang! Another strange explosion could be heard coming from the front. Chu Luiyue and Rongxiu stopped at the same time and looked at each other. Compared to the previous time, the sound this time was clearly much closer, and the air seemed to be exuding a faint smell of blood. Something really happened. Chu Luiyue immediately quieted down and waited with bated breaths. At this moment, the few of them were hiding behind a huge rock and could not see what was going on over there. However, they could hear the voice very clearly. Perhaps because Rongxiu had deliberately concealed his aura, they were not far away from those people, but no one noticed them. Wei Zhe. Didn't you say that if there were any accidents, we would be able to leave from above? What's going on now? This was another person's stern questioning. Wei Zhe. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. She had heard this person's name before. He was the head of family Wei. Then, a somewhat hoarse and weak voice sounded. Everyone, my family Wei really didn't mean to deceive you. Previously, our people used this method to escape, but for some reason, it doesn't work now. Even if we really want to do something, why should we gamble with our lives? His words were full of helplessness. Hearing this, Chu Luiyue subconsciously looked up. Above the sky, a stream of light stretched across, like a bridge suspended in the air. This should be what they were talking about. What's the point of saying this now? So many people have died. The only way now is to open Tangke's tomb. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. This was the voice of Taizu. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2047. Chu Luiyue felt a little relieved when he heard Taizu's voice, which was full of vigor and seemed to be safe and sound. Judging from their words, they should have encountered some trouble and suffered many casualties. Senior Shengwan, it's easy for you to say. We have been here for such a long time and have used all our means. But Tangke's tomb still doesn't show any signs of opening. What should we do? An impatient man's voice sounded with a hint of sarcasm. You are a great senior. Back then, you were already all-powerful. Now that 1,000 years have passed, your strength must have improved again. Why don't you think of a way? I believe that Senior Shengwan won't let us down. Chu Luiyue's eyes turned cold. There was a hint of coercion in his voice. But from the looks of it, Tangke's tomb seemed to be nearby. Shengwan Jing laughed and said unhurriedly, You really think too highly of me. I just barely managed to keep my life. How can an old man like me be compared to all of you in your prime? The man continued to be aggressive. Senior Shangwan, why are you so modest? Who doesn't know that you fought the 9 dragons alone and still didn't lose? Moreover, your junior Shangwan Yu is now the lord of the Peach Blossom Dock. Senior Shangwan should be much better than us to be able to cultivate in a place like the Peach Blossom Dock, right? You haven't tried to make a move since you came here today. Could it be that you don't even care about Tang costume now that you have the Peach Blossom Dock? These words were really making people hate him. How many people in the world of divine ruins coveted the Peach Blossom Dock? Now that the Peach Blossom Dock had fallen into Chu Liuyue's hands, although the people didn't dare to have any thoughts about the Peach Blossom Dock because of Yi Wentao's miserable end, it was inevitable that they were jealous. It was fine if he didn't mention it, but now that he mentioned it, it really poked a lot of people's sore spots. Shangwan Jing looked at the person who spoke with a smile. What are you talking about? If I wasn't interested in Tang costume, why would I spend so much effort to come here today? The reason why I didn't make a move is that I'm afraid of death. It's not so complicated. As soon as he said this, everyone quieted down. The field fell into a strange silence. Although everyone understood this, with Shangwan Jing's status, how could he say it out loud without any hesitation? Didn't he feel embarrassed? He said it so bluntly that it made it difficult for others to respond. He had personally admitted that he was afraid of death. If he continued to ask, wasn't that the same as forcing him to die? Not many people would dare to do such a thing. Shangwan Jing ignored the various gazes of the people around him. He stroked his beard and sighed. Sigh, there's something you don't know. Wei Zhe cupped his fists. In that case, I'll give it a try first. What do you all think? No one objected. If this method could open that door, then Wei Zhe would be the first person to enter Tang costume. There was no need to talk about the benefits. This was also the main reason why the previous batch of people had tried it one after another. With the benefits in front of them, they couldn't help but be tempted. However, after a series of setbacks, everyone realized that it was extremely dangerous to take the lead. Furthermore, they would basically die and have their souls destroyed. They wouldn't even have the chance to escape. Everyone couldn't help but be wary. No matter how tempting the temptation ahead was, they had to be alive to enjoy it, right? Wei Zhe was the head of the family Wei. It was undoubtedly the most appropriate for him to speak. Head of the family Wei, please. Wei Zhe nodded and walked to the blood-red boulder. He was 3 steps away from the bronze door ring. His expression was solemn and his brows furrowed. It was impossible for him not to be nervous. However, he had a plan in mind. Then, a halberd appeared in his hand. It was black and green and extremely sharp. Everyone's expression changed when they saw the halberd. 10,000 Peaks halberd. The reason why they were so shocked was because this was a sacred artifact. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 2048. The Halberd of 10,000 Peaks. So this thing is in the family Wei. Chu Liyue was also surprised to hear the continuous exclamations. He looked up at Rongxiu. Didn't they say that the Halberd of 10,000 Peaks has been missing for thousands of years? Rongxiu narrowed his eyes. The family Wei has never revealed this information before. This thing, it's very likely that they just got it not long ago. Why do you think so? Chu Liyue's brows twitched. Maybe they got it long ago, but they hid it very well. Rongxiu's lips curled into a half-smile. Wei Zhe isn't someone who can keep his cool. Although the family Wei was also a first-class aristocratic family, it was still slightly inferior to the Yuntian Tower that Rongxiu was in. In the world of divine ruins, it was an extremely honorable thing for any aristocratic family to have a divine artifact. If the family Wei had it long ago, they would have announced it to the world. If I'm not wrong, they got the halberd of 10,000 peaks after knowing about the existence of Tang Ku's tomb. Wei Zhe deliberately suppressed the news and waited for today. Meeting Chu Liuyue's confused gaze, Rong Xiu chuckled and explained. The halberd of 10,000 peaks is the divine artifact that Tang Ku refined back then. With Tang Ku's divine artifact, there might be a chance of success in opening the door to her tomb. At that very moment, everyone present was thinking the same thing. When they saw Wei Zhe take out the halberd of 10,000 peaks, they immediately understood something. Their expressions immediately changed. Wei Zhe. When did you get the halberd of 10,000 peaks? Wei Zhe narrowed his eyes. I don't think I need to tell you this, right? Humph. Who doesn't know that the halberd of 10,000 peaks is one of the 5 divine artifacts that Tang Ku refined back then? With this item, it would be easy for you to open Tang Ku's tomb. Why go through so much trouble to find us? Wei Zhe, what are you planning? Wei Zhe chuckled. Everyone has really misunderstood me. I have no enmity with any of you, so why would I harm you? In fact, I did want to use this thing to try to open Tang Ku's tomb, but before I could do it, the news had already spread. Helplessly, this idea could only be put aside for the time being and wait for everyone to come together before trying again. Sheng Wanjing suddenly said, if that's the case, why didn't you say anything at the beginning? Why did you only speak after so many people had died? This was also what the others were most concerned about. If Wei Zhe had taken it out earlier, those people wouldn't have had to die. Wei Zhe smiled bitterly. Senior Shengwan, I didn't expect this place to be so dangerous. Originally, I thought that since we are all peak existences in the divine ruins world, we would definitely have a solution. Besides, if I had spoken at that time, then, it would probably have attracted discussion, right? In other words, he was doing this for the sake of fairness. Otherwise, everyone would be here and he would be the first to do so. It would seem like he was deliberately snatching it, only now that no one dared to rashly step forward, it was the most appropriate time for him to make a move. Everyone was speechless. Sheng Wanjing frowned. Wei Zhe's words and actions seemed to be understandable. However, if he did this, those people who had died earlier would be wronged. However, everyone was in a competitive relationship. Speaking of which, Wei Zhe didn't have the obligation or responsibility to be responsible for the lives of others. It was fine to say that he was selfish, but no one was in the position to criticize him. This Wei Zhe. He was really scheming. Wei Zhe sneered in his heart, then retracted his gaze and clenched the 1,000 Peaks halberd in his hand. This was his family Wei's territory. Tang Ku's tomb should be theirs. These people came from all over to fight for it, yet they still had the nerve to say so much. Did they really think that his family Wei was easy to bully? Fortunately, he was lucky enough to obtain this 1,000 Peaks halberd. With this, his chances of opening Tang Ku's tomb would be greatly increased. Thinking of this, Wei Zhe felt a wave of excitement in his heart. He was also a weapon refiner, so he was naturally curious and yearning for Tang Ku's tomb. As long as he could enter, he might be able to obtain the treasures or inheritance left behind by Tang Ku. Wei Zhe's heart was burning. He couldn't help but lick his lips, transfer the force in his body, and pour it all into the 1,000 Peaks halberd. Then, he held the 1,000 Peaks halberd tightly in one hand and stabbed forward. Buzz! A strange buzzing sound suddenly came from the huge blood-red stone. Immediately after, the bronze door ring moved without any wind, as if an invisible hand had pulled it up and buckled it gently. Knock knock. A crisp knocking sound came from the door. Everyone was shocked. It moved. This is really a door. Wei Zhe's eyes were fixed on it. His heart was beating violently, and the blood in his body seemed to be boiling. The sky quickly darkened. Dark clouds gathered, and the wind whistled. Tianlei, like silver snakes, appeared one after another, shuttling back and forth in the clouds. The momentum was great. The movement was astonishing. Shengguan Jing raised his eyes to take a look. A sacred artifact is indeed extraordinary. A casual movement can trigger such a magnificent scene. Even if he wanted to refine a venerable artifact, he might not be able to trigger so many Tianlei in such a short time. The Thousand Peaks halberd, one of the 10 great sacred artifacts, was indeed worthy of its reputation. Rumble. A Tianlei fell with a loud bang. It went straight for Wei Zhe. The dazzling light almost made people unable to open their eyes. Some of the weaker ones couldn't withstand the pressure and unconsciously took a few steps back. However, most of the people present still insisted on not moving a single step. If Tang Ke's tomb was really opened, even if they couldn't get first place, they had to try their best to run in front. Boom! The Tianlei struck the Thousand Peaks halberd in Wei Zhe's hand. However, the moment the imposing Tianlei fell on the Thousand Peaks halberd, it was instantly devoured. An inch-long, silver-white pattern appeared. Wei Zhe was the closest to it, so he saw it the clearest. For a moment, he was shocked and amazed. As expected of one of the 10 great sacred artifacts, such a terrifying Tianlei force was completely devoured in the blink of an eye. It contained so much energy, but in the end, only one pattern was awakened. If the Thousand Peaks halberd was completely awakened, how awe-inspiring would that be? In fact, this was the first time Wei Zhe officially made a move after obtaining the Thousand Peaks halberd. Therefore, even he himself was shocked. After a short moment of shock, his heart was filled with endless excitement and joy. With such a treasure in hand, Tang Ke's tomb would definitely open. Then, several more Tianlei fell one after another. The aura on the Thousand Peaks halberd became more and more powerful. The bronze doorknob kept swaying. And the buzzing sound coming from inside seemed to be getting clearer and clearer. Finally, the last Tianlei was also devoured by the Thousand Peaks halberd. The last dark pattern on the halberd lit up. Wei Zhe took a deep breath and stabbed forward fiercely. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2049. Clang. An ear-piercing sound of sharp weapons colliding was heard. Everyone held their breaths as they stared intently at the screen. However, Wei Zhe's expression changed from complacency to shock and confusion. Finally, it was filled with disbelief. In front of him, Wanfeng's halberd was pressed against the blood-red stone, but it did not budge at all. He widened his eyes in shock and could not believe what he was seeing. Then, he exerted force again and stabbed forward. But nothing changed. There wasn't even the slightest mark left on the rock. This so-called door had no intention of opening at all. Because he exerted force, a dull pain came from his perlicue. However, Wei Zhe had no time to care about it. How could this be? How could this be? The power on Wanfeng's halberd had been completely awakened, and the strange stone in front of him was still buzzing. But, it just could not be opened. Family Wei, what's going on? At this moment, the surrounding people also noticed that something was wrong. They looked at each other with puzzled and suspicious expressions. Wei Zhe was embarrassed. He tried to retrieve Wanfeng's halberd, but there was not a single mark on it. However, that voice did not disappear. Even, the bronze door knocker was still clinging to the door. Seeing all this, Wei Zhe's heart sank, and his face turned green and white. He thought that this movement was caused by him, but in the end, it was not. And the surrounding people, seeing this scene, how could they not understand? What's going on? Isn't Wanfang's halberd a sacred weapon refined by Tangku? Why can't it be opened? This thing can't be fake, right? Looking at the movement just now, this thing must be real. It's also true that it can't open this door. Ha! After all this time, it turns out that this method won't work. Family Wei really worked for nothing. The crowd discussed in low voices. All kinds of words reached Wei Zai's ears, and his heart was in turmoil. His temples were throbbing like a ball of fire that was about to burst out from his chest. Ridicule. Ridicule. Contempt. Those gazes made him feel as if there were daggers at his back. His entire body stiffened as he stood rooted to the ground. His mind was completely blank and in complete chaos. Clearly, everything was progressing smoothly. How could it be? If even the sacred weapon that Tang Ku had refined herself could not open the tomb, then, who else in this world, and what else, could do it? That's not right. Sheng Wanjing frowned and stared ahead, muttering softly. The few people around him looked over. What's wrong? Sheng Wanjing raised his chin. Wei Zai didn't move, but the movement on the rock didn't stop. With his reminder, the others were also stunned. Taking a closer look, he realized that this was indeed the case. Perhaps Tang Ku's tomb has sensed the existence of the 10,000 Peaks halberd and caused this commotion. But even with Wei Zai's own strength, he still couldn't open it. Someone guessed. Sheng Wanjing said nothing. He still felt that something was wrong. His suspicions gradually increased when he saw the scene before him. If the 10,000 Peaks halberd could trigger these senses, why couldn't it open? Family Wei, could it be that your strength isn't enough and that's why you couldn't open it? Someone in the crowd finally raised his voice and asked. These words were a little unpleasant to hear. They were just short of directly saying that it was because Wei Zai was incompetent. But Wei Zai couldn't refute it now. He suddenly sneered, turned to look at the person who spoke, and handed over the 10,000 Peaks halberd in his hand. If you have the confidence, why don't you give it a try yourself? Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect him to have such a reaction. That person was stunned for a moment and then snorted. Family Wei, you really like to joke. This 10,000 Peaks halberd is a sacred weapon. Once it recognizes a master, it can't be used anymore. Are you saying this on purpose to embarrass? This 10,000 Peaks halberd hasn't recognized a master yet. Wei Zai's words immediately caused the scene to fall into dead silence. At this moment, all the sounds of discussion and clamor completely disappeared. Countless pairs of eyes looked at him in shock, as if doubting the authenticity of his words. Wei Zai sneered. At this time, I, Wei Zai, have no need to lie. If anyone doesn't believe me, you can come forward and try it yourself. Since everyone thinks that I, Wei Zai, am not capable enough, then I'll just hand over this thing. Whoever can use this 10,000 Peaks halberd to open Tang Ku's tomb, I'll say if impressed. As long as anyone has the ability to make the 10,000 Peaks halberd recognize a master and obtain all the items in Tang Ku's tomb, Wei Zai will have no objections. As he spoke, he flung his wrist and actually threw the thing forward. The 10,000 Peaks halberd floated quietly in the air. Countless dazzling streams of light refined by Tianlei were still flickering on the halberd, giving it an imposing aura. Many people looked at each other. Such a temptation could be said to be great. But Wei Zai was Family Wei's Family Wei after all. He was the king of equipment refinement and a god. With such strength, he could definitely be considered one of the best among these people. If even Wei Zai couldn't do it, then how many people present could give it a try? Even the person who had mocked him earlier was somewhat hesitant. His strength was similar to Wei Zai's. If he also couldn't do it now, then, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Wei Zhe looked around and sneered in his heart. He was standing closest to them, so he knew best that the commotion inside was not caused by the 10,000 Peaks halberd. It would be the same no matter who came. This is a little interesting. I'm willing to give it a try. Chapter 2050. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. The person who spoke was Shengguan Jing. Wei Zhe sneered. Senior Shengguan, have you made up your mind? Didn't you say just now that you're here to join in the fun? Shengguan Jing said with a smile. What's there to hesitate about? Since the leader of the family Wei is willing to offer the long halberd of Wan Feng, why can't we give it a try? Besides, I'm indeed here to join in the fun, but it seems that everyone doesn't seem to be willing to move. In that case, I can only do it myself. We can't just stand here and watch, can we? Wei Zhe was rendered speechless by his words. If that's the case, then, please. With that, he took a few steps back. It seemed that he was really going to watch from the sidelines. Shengguan Jing wasn't afraid of embarrassing himself, so what was there to worry about? Shengguan, are you really going to go over? The people next to him wanted to dissuade him, but Shengguan Jing shook his head with a smile. What's the big deal? Although the leader of the family Wei failed, he's still fine, isn't he? Since there's no loss, why not give it a try? Seeing that Shengguan Jing had made up his mind, the rest of the people stopped trying to dissuade him. Then, be careful. Shengguan Jing still had a smile on his face as he strode forward. At this moment, all eyes were focused on him. Shengguan Jing came to the middle, raised his hand, and took the long halberd of Wan Feng in his hand. He first waited for a while, then injected some of his power into it and raised his eyebrows. As expected, this thing is still ownerless. Only in this way would he be able to channel his power into Wei Zhe's body after he had used it. However, without an owner, the power that this thing could exert was extremely small. Hearing Shengguan Jing's words, many people were even more shaken. Sacred artifacts were extremely intelligent, and they would always choose their own masters. Without that opportunity, it would be useless even if one held onto it for 10 or 100 years. In his hands, he couldn't display the true power of the holy artifact at all. No wonder Wei Zhe was so assured to let it out. However, judging from the current situation, the Thousand Peaks halberd didn't seem to recognize Shengguan Jing as its master. Wei Zhe closed his eyes, and his tense heart relaxed a little. It was impossible for him not to be nervous. Ever since he had obtained the 10,000 Peaks halberd, he hadn't been acknowledged, and he felt vexed. It was like guarding a mountain of gold, but not being able to spend a single cent. This feeling was truly unbearable. Just now, he had thrown out the myriad Peaks halberd in a fit of anger. Now that he had calmed down, he felt some regret. Now, he could only hope that these people would not be recognized by the Thousand Peaks halberd. Shengguan Jing sized up Wan Feng's halberd for a while before he took it in his hand. He looked up with a solemn expression, and at the same time, he began to mobilize the energy in his body. Then, he suddenly thrust it forward. Clang! The crisp sound of a collision rang out again. Everything in front of him was still motionless. His reaction was exactly the same as when Wei Zhe made his move. Shengguan Jing frowned and stopped without hesitation. At this moment, he also realized that something was wrong. The commotion inside was not caused by Wan Feng's halberd. Under such circumstances, no matter what, it couldn't be opened. Wei Zhe crossed his arms and laughed. Senior Shengguan, how do you feel after trying it yourself? I think, it doesn't seem to be any different from what I did just now, right? Shengguan Jing didn't care about his mockery. It would be strange if Tang's tomb was really so easy to open. Moreover, the key to opening the door was clearly not the 10,000 Peaks halberd. What else was there to say? This 10,000 peaks halberd is not the key to opening Tang Ku's tomb. Shengguan Jing threw the 10,000 peaks halberd casually and said. Wei Zhe didn't expect him to reveal the secret so straightforwardly, and he was a little angry for a moment. However, after thinking about it carefully, this matter couldn't be hidden, and there was nothing to mind. He took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. Senior Shengguan, what do you mean? Someone asked. This 10,000 peaks halberd was refined by Tang Ku personally back then. How can it be useless? If it can't even do this, then they really had no choice. Shengguan Jing focused his eyes and looked at the bronze doorknob again. This was actually the most strange thing about him. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. He vaguely felt that the patterns on the bronze doorknob seemed to be somewhat familiar. It seemed like he had seen it somewhere before. He took a step forward. A ball of red flames appeared again. In an instant, it was about to surround Shengguan Jing. Be careful. No one expected Shengguan Jing to suddenly step forward. He had clearly learned his lesson previously. Once he approached rashly, he would definitely be attacked. Shengguan Jing reacted extremely quickly. This time, he clearly saw that the flames were surging out from the bronze doorknob. His expression turned stern, and he immediately set up a barrier around his body. However, at the same time, the force in his body seemed to be affected by the flames, and it surged rapidly as if it was boiling. The scorching temperature quickly invaded his body. Poof! A ball of red flames suddenly burst out from his left shoulder. Shengguan Jing thought to himself, oh no. This is a sign that I'm about to explode and die. However, at this moment, a crimson golden flame suddenly flew over and surrounded him. Those red flames were devoured in the blink of an eye. Who? Everyone heard the commotion and immediately turned to look. Then, he saw a slender and exquisite figure approaching at high speed. Chu Luiyue grabbed Taizu's arm and was about to retreat. Suddenly, the bronze doorknob shone brightly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2051. Taizu immediately recognized Chu Luiyue and exclaimed in surprise. Before he could finish his sentence, he looked up and saw a flash of light behind her. Chu Luiyue also sensed that something was wrong and turned around to look. The rust on the bronze doorknob was peeling off quickly. A vast and sacred aura spread out from it. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed and she gasped. As the light flashed, she could vaguely see that the patterns on the bronze door were very similar to the secret inscriptions on the armillary shield. The crimson flames around Shengguan Jing had already faded away. The two figures appeared clearly in front of everyone. When the crowd saw this, they were all shocked. Although Wei Zhe had never seen Chu Luiyue before, he immediately guessed her identity. Shengguan Yu. Why is she here? Previously, everyone had gathered in the stone forest and entered together. How did she suddenly appear here? Since she was here, then, where was Rongxiu? Family Wei, long time no see. How are you? A deep and pleasant voice sounded like the wind plucking the strings of a zither. Wei Zhe's heart sank when he heard the voice. He immediately turned around and saw a familiar figure in a snow-white robe. Rongxiu. Wei Zhe was angry and anxious. When did these people come in? Why didn't he notice them at all? The rest of the people present also reacted quickly. They kept looking at Rongxiu and Chu Luiyue. Most of them had seen Rongxiu before. Hence, most of their attention was placed on Chu Luiyue at this point. Shengguan Yu. The one who defeated Yi Wentao in the Battle of Peach Blossom Dock. Someone murmured in disbelief. She looks like a high deity, Although she's a high deity, she helped Sheng Wanjing block the flames that gushed out of the bronze door knocker. That's right. She has contracted with the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. These things are naturally of no threat to her, they were around just now. How did he get in? Everyone was talking about it. The appearance of Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao was like a stone thrown into the water, causing countless ripples. However, at this moment, Chu Luiyue did not pay attention to these movements. She furrowed her brows and stared at the bronze doorknob. She then reached out her hand without hesitation. Danger. Sheng Wanjing was about to stop him when Chu Luiyue shook his head gently. Taizu, don't worry. I know what to do. Hearing her words, Sheng Wanjing froze in midair. He knew that she never did meaningless things. Since she came here, it meant that she must have her own purpose. Sheng Wanjing recalled that quite a few people had died here one after another and felt uneasy. However, the red fire was indeed suppressed by Chu Luiyue. Sheng Wanjing was very conflicted, but in the end, he chose to believe her. He did not say anything else and just silently mobilized all the force in his body. If he found something wrong, he would immediately take action. The onlookers all looked over at this moment. When they saw Chu Luiyue's actions, many people looked at each other with a hint of mockery in their eyes. So many people failed just now. Did she think that she was different from others? Wei Zhe curled the corners of his mouth without a smile and said, Sheng Wanyu, that bronze door knocker is extremely dangerous. Many people have already died here. You're taking such a risk. If something happens later, don't blame me for not warning you. Chu Luiyue did not stop moving as if she did not hear him at all. Ignoring him in public was undoubtedly not giving Wei Zhe face. Wei Zhe's face was faintly green. Go, I will protect my princess. Rong Xiao spoke casually and interrupted Wei Zhe. His expression was languid and calm, but his tone was indisputable. Besides, Yu is now the master of Peach Blossom Dock. Speaking of which, she is on an equal footing with the master of Family Wei. Master of Family Wei, it's better to respectfully call her Master Yu, okay? Wei Zhe was so angry that the veins on his forehead throbbed. The Yu residence of Peach Blossom Dock has just been established, but my family Wei has been passed down for thousands of years. It is a first-class family in the world of God. How can they be compared? In other words, Chu Luiyue was not qualified to be compared with him at all. Rong Xiao smiled and gently stroked the tip of his eyebrows with his slender white fingers. Then, I would like to ask, if the master of Family Wei is so powerful, who is stronger than Yi Wentao? Wei Zhe choked and the rest of his words were suddenly stuck in his throat. He could not say anything. What kind of existence was the family Yi? What kind of person was Yi Wentao? Ordinary people might not know, but people from first-class families like them knew best. Wei Zhe knew that if he were to fight with Yi Wentao, he would be the one to suffer a crushing defeat in the end. But Yi Wentao had lost in Peach Blossom Dock. His lips moved and his eyes unconsciously looked at the slender and exquisite figure not far away. Everyone in the area instantly quietened down. They had almost forgotten that the reason why the woman in front of them could become the master of Peach Blossom Dock was because she had defeated Yi Wentao. If even Yi Wentao was no match for her, then they, at this moment, Chu Luiyue's hand was less than an inch away from the bronze doorknob. Wei Zhe's heart felt like it was being squeezed tightly by something. Let them be arrogant for now. Later, when something happens, they will. As soon as this thought came to his mind, Wei Zhe widened his eyes in shock. Because Chu Luiyue had grabbed the bronze doorknob safely. Her slender fingers held the doorknob tightly. The glow from the doorknob made her skin look like jade. Everyone unconsciously held their breaths and looked at this scene in disbelief. Chu Liyue's eyes were fixed in front of her. When she touched it, she could even clearly feel the patterns on it. She clearly did not recognize these runes, but, for some reason, she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity at this moment. This feeling had actually started just now, and now it was even stronger and clearer. She pursed her lips. Standing here, she could hear the movements coming from inside more clearly. She was a little uncertain before, but now she could confirm that all the movements behind her were related to the 3 divine artifacts in her body. Tangku's Thousand Peaks halberd could not open it, but the divine artifacts left behind by Mr. Su could sense it strongly. Chu Liyue no longer hesitated and gently pulled on the bronze doorknob. Knock, knock. The next moment, white light enveloped them. The stone in front of them suddenly cracked and gradually revealed the appearance of a door. Chu Liyue pulled again. Creak, the door slowly opened. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2052. Looking at the door that was slowly opening, everyone was shocked on the spot. It's open. In the deathly silent crowd, someone mumbled in disbelief. Wei Zhe closed his eyes tightly, afraid that he had seen something wrong. However, the scene in front of him didn't disappear. The door was still opening bit by bit. A white light shrouded it, and no one could see what was behind the door. But it was indeed open. The door that was still motionless when so many people had died just now opened smoothly with a gentle knock from Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue immediately raised her leg and took a step forward. The next moment, her figure disappeared into the door. Rong Xiu's pace seemed neither fast nor slow, but in fact, his speed was extremely fast. As soon as he raised his hand, the halberd of 10,000 peaks, which was originally floating quietly in the air, flew over quickly. Then, he came to Shangwan Jing's side. Senior Shangwan, we should follow them. Rong Xiu chuckled. Shangwan Jing suddenly came back to his senses. Yes. You had already gone in. He took a deep breath and walked forward. Rong Xiu followed behind the two of them. Yan Qing and Chang Wanzhou followed them like shadows. Just now, everyone's attention was on Chu Liyue and Rong Xiu, and the two of them had always been good at hiding their figures and breaths, so they were like two transparent people from the beginning to the end. Until now, when they followed closely into the door, everyone was shocked to realize that the two of them didn't seem to be simple. When their figures disappeared one after another, the onlookers outside were still in deep shock. Wei Zhe was the first to react. The halberd of 10,000 peaks. That thing was taken away by Rong Xiu just now. That was a divine weapon. It was a treasure that he had obtained with great difficulty. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase after them. Wei Zhe shouted angrily and immediately rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, his figure also disappeared behind the door. Hearing this, the family Wei people woke up one after another. Seeing that Wei Zhe had already left, they couldn't care about anything else and hurriedly followed him. At this moment, the rest of the people present finally realized what was going on, and they all rushed towards the door in a rush. How could they not seize the opportunity to open Tang Ku's tomb after much difficulty? Whether they could get the inheritance and make further progress depended on today. Soon, everyone present rushed in. The stone forest regained its silence again. Only the scattered corpses and the messy bloodstains on the ground proved that everything that had happened here was real. After an unknown period of time, those corpses suddenly began to rot quickly. After about 15 minutes, only a set of corpses. The corpses, the corpses, the corpses, the corpses, and the corpses, the corpses, the corpses. Even the bloodstains on the ground seemed to have been swallowed up by something and quickly disappeared. There was only a faint smell of blood left in the air. It was as if nothing had happened. The dazzling white light quickly dissipated, and the scene in front of him gradually became clear. This was a passageway that led downwards. The passageway was narrow and could only accommodate 2 people walking side by side. Pearls the size of a fist were hung on the walls on both sides of the room at regular intervals. The faint glow shone down as if it was daytime and everything was panoramic. At this moment, Chu Luiyue was standing at the front, her feet stepping on the first step. She looked down with the help of the light, but she couldn't see the end. It seemed to extend all the way down to the ground. Chu Luiyue raised her vigilance to the highest level and held the red cloud sword in her hand before going down. Shengguan Jing followed behind her. When he saw everything around him clearly, even he couldn't help but gasp in shock. The walls are carved from lapis lazuli jade. The so-called lapis lazuli jade was an extremely precious jade. Its texture was extremely hard and it was an excellent material for refining divine weapons. The success rate of refining with lapis lazuli jade was often much higher. Therefore, this lapis lazuli was highly valued and liked by weapon refiners. It was just that this thing was naturally produced and its quantity was limited, so it was very rare. This also made lapis lazuli jade even more difficult to find. Chu Luiyue could of course see that it was lapis lazuli jade. Among the venerable divine weapons that Taizu gave her, there was a short sword that was refined from this thing. Even a top-notch weapon refining venerable like the great ancestor only had such a small piece. But at this moment, the walls on both sides were made of lapis lazuli jade. It was no wonder that Taizu was so shocked. It seems that this is really Tang Ke's tomb. Other than him, who else in the world can do such a thing? Taizu let out a long sigh and then looked at the figure in front of him with a complicated and emotional gaze. So many people had tried before, but they had all failed. But this girl came and opened the door directly. Such a thing could only be explained by the word opportunity. Although he knew that this girl had always been lucky, he was still shocked by these things that happened to her every time. This kind of luck was truly something that others could only be envious and jealous of. Familiar footsteps came from behind. It was Rong Xiao and the others. As Shengguan Jing walked, he couldn't help but ask, why are you here? When he said that he was coming here, she didn't seem to have any intention of coming. If he knew that they were coming, he would have brought them along. Chu Luiyue said softly, I didn't plan to come at first, but later I found out about some things, so I decided to come and take a look. Wonderful book house. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.